So I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting of Tuesday, May the 26th. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Ms. Winter, I know there's one.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration has one amendment to the agenda this evening. Item 14A, Regional Transit Services Commission update. It's in closed session. Documents have been distributed to council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Hendriks?
So moved.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Just as we get going though, I would like to acknowledge that we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The city of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. All right, so first up on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. So we have item 5A, regular council meeting minutes of May the 12th. Item 5B, committee of the whole meeting minutes of May the 19th. The regular council meeting minutes have been amended. And that's it. So I move that we pass those without debate. All in favor or discussion on the motion? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope I'm doing this in the right order this time. But I was reading the committee of the whole. So, and there is an item there that needs to be corrected, just a typo, I believe. So I'd like that particular set of minutes to be exempted, and I can just tell you what it is.
Okay, well, if we're going to exempt it, we might as well. I will withdraw my motion and we'll just deal with them one at a time because they're the only two items on the consent agenda tonight.
It's a small matter, but I think it is important. Underneath the closed session, Your Worship, it does say that John Stewart moved that the committee come out of closed session, and then it also says that moved by Hendriks that committee of the whole come out of closed session. I think yours was to go into closed session and Councillor Hendriks was to come out.
Okay, so we'll make that motion. We'll make that amendment, and yeah. So I guess we'll go back to item, when we get to adoption of minutes, we'll make that amendment and we'll do both of them together. We have no open forum items, I don't believe, Ms. Winter.
No, Your Worship.
Okay, so item 5A, regular council meeting minutes as amended from May the 12th. I move we adopt the regular council meeting minutes of May the 12th, 2020. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Item 5B, I move that we adopt the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting May 19th, 2020 as amended by Councillor Barnhart. Any further discussion on those minutes?
No.
No. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, so moving pretty well tonight. Tonight's going to be an interesting night. We have our first online public hearing. So hopefully the technology doesn't fail us and we'll get to do this. So at this time, I'd like to declare that the non-statutory public hearing for the Forest Heights Outline Plan Amendment is open. It is being held in pursuant to sections 230-606 and 692 of the Municipal Government Act of 2000 as amended. City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. The purpose of the hearing is for the amendment of the Forest Heights Outline Plan. Notice of the non-statutory public hearing was provided in writing to the assessed landowner, the adjacent landowners, the applicant and school boards and other agencies. The non-statutory public hearing notice was advertised in the local newspaper on May 15th and May 22nd, 2020. The non-statutory public hearing notice was advertised on the Beaumont's website beginning on May 15th, 2020. Any written submissions have been received and are included in this evening's agenda package, and there's nothing to read into the record at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'd just like to make a quick statement that everybody that's about to speak, please state who you are, speak clearly into the camera and the microphone, and we'll go from there. First up, as usual, is the Director of Planning and Development or their designate. Who will speak from admin on this tonight?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Tonight we have Emily Sangster, Long Range Planner, who will be presenting on our behalf.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I'm going to start by sharing my screen here. If I can find the correct window. There it is. Okay. And okay. Good evening again. My name is Emily Sangster. I'm a long-range planner with the City of Beaumont, and I'm here today to present a proposed amendment to the Forest Heights Outline Plan. As shown on attachment 3 of the council package, the Forest Heights neighborhood is located in East Beaumont and is bounded by Glenberry Meadows to the west, 50th Avenue to the north, Range Road 241 to the east, and Triumph Estates to the south. And as you can see here, the amendment area is located in red in the southwest corner of the neighborhood. An outline plan is a non-statutory plan that provides guidance for land development. The Forest Heights Outline Plan was originally adopted in 2006 and has been amended several times, most recently in 2017. Recognizing that we have a number of presenters at this public hearing, I will briefly summarize the application and administration's recommendation. The stated purpose of the application is to amend the proposed road network and lot configuration to improve neighborhood circulation and respond to housing market conditions. The specific proposed amendments to the Forest Heights Outline Plan include, there we go, reverting to the road network configuration here that was originally adopted in a 2012 amendment to the plan, providing a trail connection from 46th Avenue South to Triumph Estates along the west edge of the South Stormwater Management Facility here, updating land use statistics to reflect minor changes in land use areas, and updating the text description of the Beaumont Planning Framework to reflect the new land use bylaw and intermunicipal planning framework agreement that have been adopted since the previous amendment. The proposed amended outline plan also maintains some elements of the existing 2017 outline plan. These include a non-trail public utility lot here connecting the north and south stormwater management facilities at 46th Avenue, retention of part of the existing tree stand here between the southwest corner of the Forest Heights neighborhood and Triumph Estates as a natural area, and maintains a residential density of 22 units per net residential hectare. Administration's view is that this amendment is consistent with the policies and land use concept of the municipal development plan, Our Complete Community. As noted in more detail in the request for decision, it's consistent with MDP direction for new neighborhoods to integrate trail connections to the city's larger trail and pathway network, and for trails to support ease of use, multiple route choices, and both recreational and purpose-driven activities. It also conforms to MDP direction regarding roadway network design and regarding the incorporation of existing tree stands into the open space network where feasible. So administration is recommending its approval as presented. I'm happy to respond to any questions at this time before we move to the next presenter.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll open it up for questions from members of council. No questions from members of council for admin. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Mayor Worship. A quick question. We can ask question administration after the public hearing, can we not?
What do you mean?
We can ask administration questions after the public hearing is presented, can we not? I believe we can.
Well, there's two opportunities. You can ask questions after each presenter is presented.
Right.
And then your next opportunity to ask questions of admin will come up when we debate the motion to accept or not.
Okay, that's good for now. Thank you. Just for
Councillor
clarity.
Sorry, Councillor Danlock.
Just for clarity, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Stout.
Yeah, mine was much the same question. I'd like to. Can I also ask, are the developers going to be presenting at all?
The applicant is going to speak next.
Okay, so I think perhaps my question will be better directed towards the applicant, although I still want the opportunity to talk to administration as well. So I will cede the microphone at this time.
Okay. Councillor Van Newkirk, hand went up, hand went down.
Can I also ask, are the developers going to be presenting?
Somebody, you're on time delay somewhere. Okay. Request from Councillor Monkoff Swain that put the PowerPoint up showing the proposed 2012 and 2017 concept back onto screen sharing, if we could, please. Seeing no questions from members of council for admin, we will now invite the applicant to speak. Who will speak on behalf of Forest Heights?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just maybe a nod. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, thanks. I was just looking for video. I thought maybe it'd be on, but it's okay. It's not. Anyways, my name is Patrick Shaver. I'm the president of Villia Developments, and we are the developer of Forest Heights. And thank you for the opportunity to speak today. What I'd like to do, I just have a couple notes, and I just wanted to try to bring up my presentation. As you say, some of this technology here. I can bring it up. I don't think you're seeing it though, do you?
If you just hit the share screen button, so scroll your mouse to the bottom, hit the share screen green button. That'll get you to bring it up.
Appreciate that. Okay.
We got it now.
Thank you so much. Again, so yeah, appreciate the time on this first meeting remotely. We've got we're amending the outline plan, and as administration mentioned, it's really going back to the original plan that we had back in 2012. And I'm just going to bring that plan up right now. There's the original plan. So when you get to the last plan, you'll see that the road network is identical to what we had before. What has changed and identified is really two things. One is, you can see I'm highlighting or identifying the trail network. And through discussion, when we first did the original plan and had an open house back in 2012, 2011, there was concern about trails. The city plan had identified connections and trails, again, as administration identified. And through our open house, we had approximately 50% of the people that had responded and provided comments saying that they would support a trail, and about 50% saying that they would not support a trail. And out of the 50% that said they would support a trail, about 50% said they wanted paved asphalt and 50% said they wanted it gravel. So even though the plan was adopted in 2012, we continued to work with the city and administration on what that trail would be, how it would look, and what would happen. When we, in 2017, we went in for an amendment to the outline plan. As you can see, it's really down again, the southwest corner, where we've adjusted the road layout. The other thing you'll notice is that the trail is no longer there. And that was because through detailed design and engineering that we've done with the trail, we realized that a significant amount of the trees would be lost because the ground is very undulating. It goes up, it goes down. To be able to provide a trail that meets the standards of the city of Beaumont, we would have to move, grade that, and to grade it, that means losing the trees. So a decision was made at that time that the trail would not continue through there. However, there still would be a trail connection through Triomphe Estates to Forest Heights. So what it did is eliminate the trail on the south end. As we had before, there was an opening there of an open space, and we had an open space here and a trail connection. Now I move to the proposed amendment that administration had just presented to you. And so I'll go back to this trail. So again, this trail's been eliminated than what we had on the original plan. So there is no trail there. And the open space that was down in the corner right here has been moved over. Now, a couple of things to note. The reason why we amended the plan in 2017, as administration identified market conditions, we had two really good builders building larger lots in the city of Beaumont here in Forest Heights that really wanted an exclusive cul-de-sac, bigger lots, things that would match. And at that time, back in 2016, 2017, the market accommodated that. Unfortunately, shortly after that, the market had changed. And the two builders that we had that were interested were no longer interested in picking up a single lot, not one. We've done over the last couple of years, tried to get other builders to come in to this cul-de-sac, to this neighborhood and work on this plan, and to no avail. Notwithstanding what's happened in the last 2 months, as you can realize, the world has changed. The development has changed, things have changed, and it's made it a lot more difficult. So part two was when we did the detailed design on this right here. So again, not something that we don't do without being very serious, because it does cost us money, a lot of money to do this, is that the cost to do that with no builders interested in coming in to do this cost and just come down here and have this sit for years and years and years started becoming prohibitive. Now, I do want to comment in here because I have read letters from the residents there about separation and stuff. In order to do this plan as well, the detailed design, it's important that we have to bring the services back, the storm and the sanitary back. To do that, we had to raise this cul-de-sac right here. So that would have been raising, so the concerns about this cul-de-sac being higher than the Triumph Estates, that was absolutely correct. So, but when we get to 2020 here, going back to our original plan, now without the trail behind them, we don't have to raise this corner because it allows us to continue our servicing through here as we had originally. So we're actually in a lower position today that we are with this corner than we would have been on the 2017 plan. Not to mention, again, the 2017 plan just does not work anymore. From a cost point of view and a market point of view, it didn't work. Saying that though, again, there were some concerns about large. We still have very large lots all along here. I know some people are concerned about the size of the lots. These are lots here. And just an example of market conditions, we've serviced approximately 400 lots in Forest Heights right now. We have 8 lots remaining, all here, all large lots. And you'll see if you go through Beaumont, the lots that are still sitting vacant, unfortunately, are the larger lots. So we have to be cognizant of that. We don't want, and the neighbors don't want, and I don't believe the city wants, a development where roads are done and lots are sitting empty for years after years after years. So we do still are proposing large lots right here. And just to kind of complete, the reason why we've moved this is this trail, and this was a recommendation or a suggestion by administration, which we thought was actually very good. What would happen is I'm going to go back to the original plan and just clicking right here. This trail came behind here. To put this trail, as I'd mentioned, it undulates a lot. It's high, it's low, there's knolls, there's hills. We would have to remove almost all these trees right in here, okay? Back to this plan, the 2017, even though we had this little wedge, the trees in there, we'd have to remove those trees as mentioned in order to grade and service to bring that cul-de-sac up. These trees are too low, so we'd be removing those trees as well. So by coming down to this one here, there's nothing, even though the trees right here will be removed, okay? This trail back here means that we don't have to touch any trees in behind. We never will. And without a trail behind there, there will not be a 3-meter asphalt trail with 1 meter or 2 meters on each side where no trees will grow. This is a natural area, as administration had mentioned, and will grow and regrow and will still provide separation. Right now, there is over our calculations close to 17 meters at the closest point between the two lots, the back of lot properties. And once you put the homes in there, you're more about 35 meters, which is over 100 feet between this lot and this lot here. Again, a lot lower than what the previous plan was over here where these lots would have shown. So we've moved the open area to here to allow the trail connection, allow it to sustain, allow it to be gradual enough that it meets the city of Beaumont standards in terms of trails connections. So anyway, that's really the intent and why the difference between our original plan. I think it's a good news story for retaining the tree. The trail is no longer here, and that the trail now has just been moved from here. We've retained trees, and we've allowed to retain the connection or maintain that connection from Triumph to Forest Heights. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Patrick. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Appreciate the detailed explanation surrounding why and what happened. I'll open it up to questions from members of council. And if we have to, we have our admin available to answer a few questions too. So, member of council. This is your one and only shot, guys.
Your hands are raised there on the virtual race.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Van Newkirk. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Question for the presenter. I just wanted to get you to restate and help me understand in the proposed 2020 concept between the south, what would be the south boundary of the most south lot and the north boundary of the Triomphe lot. Did you say there would be 17 meters of undisturbed municipal reserve that would remain? Is that the number I heard?
That is correct. That is correct. Approximately 17 meters from the most southern part of the property line to the north part of the property line on Triomphe. So even though there will be fencing, will be required to put fencing back there. So there will be a little bit of disturbance at the very back in order to put the fencing. But then after that's done, there's no trail or anything in there. Again, we will retain and maintain as many trees as possible without disturbing them. And then after the fence is in place, up to the city of Beaumont, it'll be your municipal reserve, what you want. But if there's a setback or anything from the fence, but from one to the other, yeah, you're exactly right, approximately 17 meters.
Yeah, and then if I just follow up with that, when I look through the 2012 through 2017, there is the corner lots are not included and the trees remain. You did suggest in the 2017, had that cul-de-sac went through, the lot grading probably would have negated a lot of those trees that would have been in that wedge anyways. In those two concepts, what was the, besides tree retention, what was going to be the purpose of those wedges? Was it purely just to tick off the percentages of MR in the development, or was there going to be a greater purpose for that?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. The idea was to see how many trees you could retain, but also what it was to ensure that there's some openness from the lots, from the roads to the MR and behind. So even on the proposed plan right now where you see the trail was, if that trail was not very big, or even if it was just a narrow entry there, there's not a lot of eyesight, there's not a lot of eyes, looking into this. This opens it up and it's a safety concern as well. So when we went through this plan with administration originally in 2012, yes, there weren't those corner cuts, and those corner cuts were there. The one kind of further up still retained. And so all we've done with this corner cut is move it over. And just to confirm, again, you are correct with your comment on the 2017 plan. Those trees in that wedge would be removed. And today, if we went back to that wedge, I failed to mention this, but it's a good point. If we went back to the wedge on the 2020 plan from the original 2012 concept, we would still have to remove all those trees in the wedge because, again, just because of the undulation and the way that the ground goes up and down, we'd have to trim that out to put the asphalt trail in there. So we'd try to keep as many as possible, but we'd virtually be removing all the trees in that wedge.
Okay, and then last question in this train of thought, and then I'll pass it on to fellow councillors. So in the construction of 2020, even if the wedge existed, would those trees be knocked down? Is that what you just said? Is that how I understand?
If the wedge existed and we would, if the trail were to go where the wedge is, so not where it's shown right now, if it was back to where the wedge, yes, absolutely, all those trees would be knocked down, almost all of them. If that wedge were still to be there and for some reason the trail would go somewhere else, I'm not sure where else it would go, there's a portion of the trees that would be removed, again, just because of grading and servicing and stuff that would happen. But what we did is, you saw, we moved that wedge from the west, from the corner, slid it over to the east there to minimize even the impact of the lots behind. So, but correct, if that would go back to that wedge, those trees would be removed.
Okay, and 2012 to 2020, how many lots is that wedge in 2012 to 2020? How many lots are we speaking that are on that corner? Is that 3 or 4 or 2?
It'd be about 2.5. It's what it worked out to be, because what we did when we came around that corner and goes to where it shows in the 2020 plan right now, we still maintain those as large lots. And I'm just checking where we're about 42 foot pockets on those lots. So those are very large lots. So I'm just flipping as you see me looking down, but those are still retained pocket lots. So the width, you add 4 or 5 feet on each side of those lots, and then they're pie shaped as well. So we're talking about 2.5 lots.
Okay, that's my train of thought, Mayor. For now, I'll open it up or let other councillors take a go here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to Mr. Shaver. I got to confess, I'm kind of mystified by some of the statements being made regarding this amendment and its conformance with various policy and plan objectives. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's already just discussed one of my concerns, but another one I have is the trail system here. As proposed, this trail system leaves a gap of about 180 meters, if I'm measuring that correctly, somewhere between 180 and 200 meters. I am puzzled that there is no, that's not connectivity at all. That's a complete loss of connectivity and trail system integrity. If I'm a resident traveling with, let's say I'm bicycling with my children and I come to the end of the trail as you've proposed it here, I'm dumped into a residential street with traffic, and I can't even, there's no line of sight to the continuation of the trail. It's, like I say, something like 200 meters away. Can't we do better than that? Is there no way that we can connect that trail?
Through Your Worship, we did look at a number of alternatives with administration, and one that was asked is that the trail that come up from Triumph, instead of bearing to the west, if it would have come up to the east, to the storm pond, as identified, there's a public utility lot, and could have come over. Now, it could have happened. However, when that next stage of Triumph was constructed and designed, you could see how it moved over to the west, and the west boundary of that, I'll call it the third cul-de-sac in Triumph, does not line up with the edge of our storm pond. The storm pond was already constructed and sized, so there is no room available to bring that trail up straight, take a hard right, take a left, go straight up and through. So we looked at that. In terms of where the location was of this trail, again, on the original 2012 plan, it did have it loop around and make that trail connection to the north. But as identified, that was then removed through the area structure plan, through discussions with administration and with council. That was approved by council to remove that. So then when we still had the trail to come through that wedge, as we call it, on that southwest corner, which we're talking about, we thought that at least was an alternative, that at least you kind of came up and then could come up to 41st Street. So there was some movement on a low volume local road to make that connection. And again, maybe administration, you could have the question to them, why their request was saying, well, instead of having it through the wedge, which it was originally in our application, that it was then moved over to where it is right now. So there were numerous different alternatives looked upon this right here on how to make a connection.
Okay, second question.
Sure.
Your Worship. Okay, then if I'm comparing, well, there's a couple of things that you've stated in your presentation. First of all, can I, if we compare the 2012 approved concept, which had the original trail connection in, and this was rejected because of the necessity to clear trees and do some regrading. But if I move that pathway, that trail system, the north-south portion of that trail system, if I move that about 12 meters, I'd estimate, eastwards, then it would pretty much trace out exactly the boundary of the area that you've already cleared or that we're proposing to clear, minus the wedge, or including the wedge, I beg your pardon. Why can't I put a trail path, why can't you put a trail path on the back of those lots? You've already referred to the fact that there's a large lot. So I've checked, I'm actually a landholder I'm speaking to you now from my house in Glenbrae Meadows. So I was included in all the notifications of this proposed subdivision change as a resident. So we could put a path through there. Councillor Danlock and I, in fact, this morning walked that path. Those lots, I have all the dimensions and I've crunched the numbers. Those lots are on average about 129% of the size of your average single detached lot based on the statistics that have been provided. So they could easily bear let's say 3 meters easement and a 3-meter trail on the back of them. So they'd, instead of being 36 meters long, they'd be something like 30 meters long on average. They'd still be bigger than the average semi-detached lot in this area. We could put the trail in through there and there would be no need to clear trees because they have already been cleared or are going to be cleared. Is there some reason why we can't do this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I've got a few concerns on that. First of all, is if you've walked it, you've noticed that the lots at the north end of that little strip would be walkout lots. Then you get to lots that are actually back to front. So again, this shows you just the sheer, the height and change in that. So it would have to be graded to be able to accommodate that trail. So you'd be grading both on the lot side, but also on the tree side, meaning that you'd still be removing probably 10 plus 15 meters of trees on the west. So it wouldn't be right, you know, if you're doing that right on the property line, there still would be an impact. Further, as you, after lot stopped where it is, you still have to continue that, that trail to connect to the north. So again, you're going to be clearing 10 plus meters on each side, potentially, of that trail from where it just shows green right now. So again, part of the reason why this trail was eliminated was the desire not to remove as many trees. And then the component about the lots, I appreciate what you're saying. Then you're entering into a lot that's significantly shallower, which is an impact on the type of lot that we have. And with the size of these lots and how people design their house in those pockets, those then don't become desirable lots because they're too shallow. You'd have your house and then you'd have your deck, and your deck would essentially be on top of the fence. So between, you know, there's a market condition on the lots, but in terms of removal of the trees, there's still going to be significant removal of trees to that trail where you've identified.
Okay, I'm still puzzled though. Then your worship, can I share my screen? Is that?
Yeah, I just got a. Yes, you may. Just a quick thing though. Are you here presenting as a resident, or are you representing as a council? You sort of crossed the line there.
No, I'm representing as a councillor.
Okay, so then you got to be keeping in mind we're doing what's good for the community and not the lots you back onto.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's foremost in my considerations, actually. Yeah.
You.
My property does not, in fact, back onto this. What I'm trying to ensure primarily is the connectivity and integrity of the trail system. And yes, absolutely. That's because it's a benefit to the community as a whole.
Okay.
All right, there's something I wanted to share. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to clarify, actually. Something I wanted to share. This is trail system in Edmonton. This actually is Forest Heights Park in Edmonton. What puzzles me is that you can see there's a multi-use trail. It's about 3 meters wide. This is in the river valley. So there's a steep gradient, as you can see on either side. And this extends, I'm going to come back out into, this is a Google view, this is Google satellite view. The point we were at was just here. I beg your pardon. This always goes wrong when I try to do it. And I've managed to mess that up completely. Forgive me. There, this is in Forest Heights Park in Edmonton. It's in the river valley. There's a steep gradient. It's heavily wooded. This runs for kilometers and kilometers through the river valley. And yet, when, as we were discussing, as we were just describing at the point that we have the photograph, I don't see a lot of trees being cleared here. I don't know how old the trail is compared to the trees, admittedly, but I don't see meters and meters either side. The trail runs through, admittedly not close to somebody's residential lot. I'm puzzled as to why we can't do this in Beaumont, basically. Is there, for what would be maybe 120 meters instead of the kilometers that it's done here?
Maybe admin wants to help this one out a bit.
Sorry, this is Emily Sangster here, just unmuting myself. I'm not, without an engineering background, I can't speak to the grading question. And I'm not sure if other members of Mr. Shaver's team might be available to respond to that. I do note that it's possible that following the construction of the trail, there was some reforestation and some replanting that took place. It does look like some of the trees along the side of the trail are in fairly even rows. I don't know for sure. It's a possibility that crossed my mind. But as to the engineering and the grading requirements, I would need someone from Mr. Shaver's team most likely to speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
I see we have somebody popped in. Eric, are you gonna have a go at this?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I believe Patrick Shaver got kicked out
Oh,
somehow.
let's get him back.
Just wanted to make sure. Is he back in already?
I don't see him.
Okay, yeah, he got kicked out. He's going to try and sign in, so he doesn't know if there's a phone number to call in or not. But I'm Eric Sane. I work as a planner with Select Engineering, and we've been doing the planning engineering on behalf of BYLAWS Developments. I think a lot of the grading that happens with a trail like that, going through the back of lots, like with the Forest Heights you're showing from Edmonton, they are a wide area, whereas this is a narrower tree stand. So to get the machinery in to grade, to get to the level that you need to be able to put a trail through there, especially for handicap or anything like that, I think then the trees, you might be able to put some more trees in later, like closer, but for actual construction, I'm not an engineer either, but for actual construction, we've been told that there is going to be a pretty substantial clearing that needs to be done just to make sure that that grade for that trail can accommodate handicap and other people going through there, not just people on bikes, right? So it's, and you also have to remember the tree roots. So even if a tree is just outside the trail, based on tree roots and also depending on the health of the trees, there's no way to know how extensive these tree clearings can be, because you don't want a tree that's dying that can fall on somebody. So I think those were all considerations as part of the grading and that 2017 version when that got sent off. And that was based on not only the engineering side of it and back and forth with administration, but it was also through the public wanting to keep the tree stand and not having that trail through there because of the effect that it would have, and they'd rather have the natural area. So I believe Patrick's back on now, so maybe he can.
Yeah. Apologize, Patrick. I didn't realize you had been lost.
Yeah, I apologize. Sorry. That's a wonderful world of this stuff right here. The connection usually never has a problem, but of course, in the most inopportune time, I apologize for that.
Yeah. Did you hear the whole question, or where did we lose you, I guess is the question?
No, I didn't. I apologize for your worship. The second question from Mr. Stout was that I answered the first one, and then he was just about to say the second one, so I missed that. So,
Councillor Stout, you want to repeat your question?
Yes, certainly. I'll have to share my screen again, so please bear with me if I can try and get this right. I was comparing Beaumont, the Forest Heights development in Beaumont, with a Forest Heights Park in Edmonton here in the River Valley. In particular, you can see that we've got a wooded park here in a parkland area in a river valley. So this, I'm sure if you're familiar with the river valley in Edmonton, you'll know it's quite steeply graded. But if we go into the trail system, and there's kilometers and kilometers of this compared to the, I don't know, 120, 200 meters that we'd need in Forest Heights, Beaumont. And if I drop the viewer in here, here's the trail. Here's a multi-use trail. I think this is about 3 meters wide, the same as we would be proposing. But yeah, I noticed that there's no tree removal here, and that the grade is dealt with in both directions. And as I said, there's kilometers of this. Don't know if those trees were removed and planted. I don't know the age of the trail and replanted. And it's possible, certainly, that some of that took place. But really, my question was, how is it that they can do this in Edmonton? And I could find lots of other sites in Edmonton or Calgary or across the province where this is the case. But for some reason, it's impossible in Beaumont.
Sure, through your worship. Yeah, it's not impossible. Just so you're aware, and I've been in construction for over 35 years, and I've actually built trails in the River Valley. What you're going to see, that's your perfect picture right there. So the long and short is those trees that you see adjacent to those trails were not original trees. You'll see the slope on the left, it's come down, it's been trimmed. Then you see a little bit of a swale right where your cursor is. Then the trail's flat, and then it comes back down. So that land's been completely graded. There was no magical ledge there of 10 meters that was there, and the trees were there, and the trail was able to put in. That trail was done over 40, 50 years ago. So the trees have actually grown since. So great question. No, I appreciate the question. So this is part of the discussion that we had with the previous council on about those trees. Can we put a trail there? Absolutely, we can put a trail there. And that's why it's identified in the 2012 outline plan. The thing is, we will be eliminating trees on both sides. There's an area there, I can't tell you exactly because I didn't work on that trail, but I've worked on other ones where we've taken, again, swaths of 20, 30, 40 meters to side slope it to that's safe, to level it off, to plateau it, and then it picks up after that. As you see, those trees that are there, those trees have been growing since. So if the plan is, let's put the trail, because that's the most important connectivity component, that's obviously a discussion that council administration is going to have. We can have that discussion, but just so you and the residents and everyone's aware that those trees are going to be removed, and it could take 20, 30 years before you see trees like that back in that area. So we did look at it. If it's flat, it's plateaued. Absolutely. If you look at what Triumph, or if you look at the lands to the south, what we deem the Royal lands, there's other names for it there. Those are flat lands. There's a reason why these trees were retained there is because it was no good farmland, because it was up and down. There's wetlands and pots and kettles and the whole bit, right? So do I agree with you? Yeah, I do agree. And then that's why I say why originally it was. So there was also consideration about maybe it's not an asphalt trail where you have to clear so much. Maybe it's a gravel trail where you're not following the guidelines in terms of accessibility, as Eric had mentioned, with handicapped and bikes and strollers and everything else. You could, you can modify your goat trail by minimizing tree clearing. It's going to be more steep. It's going to be down. Maybe we go around a tree or two or something like that. But there could be a more direct connection. But anyway, just to summarize on your point there, can it be done? Absolutely. But that shows the example of after it was done, what growth does over time. So if the city wants to look at growing for the next 30, 20, 30, 40 years with the trees, that's obviously a discussion we can have.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And with regards to the gravel track, yes, that's, I believe, what you're describing is more or less what the farm owner used to do there. He used to run a tractor or a bobcat through there once or twice a year and create pathways, which were even signposted, in fact. However, yeah, that's a different category of trail altogether.
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the question.
Thank you, Councillor.
Appreciate the answer. I beg your pardon.
Okay, Councillor Montgomery.
Yeah, thanks. And I think I'm still following. Essentially, what I, we're in a public hearing here. So what I just want to clarify, what Councillor Stout is looking at is what's in front, what you're proposing. I guess it sounds like Councillor Stout is council willing to forego a significant amount of those trees, granted we could plant them and grow back for the sake of a trail, right? That's if you simplify it, that's what's in front of us, what you're looking at here.
Councillor Stout, is that what you're asking?
That emerges as an option. Yes, I wasn't sure what the response was going to be to my questions, or as an alternative to driving the trail through. We can put the trail on the back of the lots that have already been cleared or are going to be cleared, but that creates, as Mr. Shaver has indicated, questions too about the saleability of those lots.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I mean, this is a clarification. So I recognize we're in a public hearing still right now. When we do move forward, and I can defer this question if you want, but when we move forward and look at the RFD, to me, there's in the RFD, there are two decisions: either we approve it or we don't. I didn't know if this was the time to be going through it and discussing those options. I'm just looking for clarification on is it a straight yes or no, or is it a yes or a no, and we can have a discussion at this time to talk about what council would like to see. I just like some clarification on exactly what's in front of us here.
Good question. Because I know it's a good time to ask all the questions and get the answers from admin, proponents, people against, people for. A discussion on what council would have liked to have seen. I would have actually preferred to see this come to a committee of the whole before this, but I'm gonna ask.
That was going to be, sorry to cut you off, that because part of as the RFD, and again, I don't want to jump too far ahead. I just want to make sure we're in alignment with what we're looking at here, because one of the options is either approve it, the other one is don't, and direct administration on what to do next. And one of those options could be to discuss it at the committee of the whole. So yeah. I just what I'm trying to avoid is us during this public hearing or during the RFD getting into the discussion on where should this trail go? Are we prepared to do this or not? I think today, once we get through the public hearing, it's a yes or no, and then we talk about the options. And if it's a no, then we go back potentially and have that bigger picture conversation. I don't know if today is the time to have that discussion. The questions are to Councillor Stout's point. The questions are important to ask here because it's part of the hearing. But in terms of us discussing what we think is best, I just wanted to get that clarification. So I think I've got that now. So I can yield the floor. So thank you.
Yeah. Part of that discussion will come during the RFD if we want to defer it for further discussion. Councillor Hendriks.
Your Worship, thank you. This is an echo for me in terms of discussion. There's been a lot of heavy lifting done with respect to this conversation relative to design, relative to all sorts of options. It would be nice to have all of that information in front of us, because a lot of the questions that are being asked tonight have already been answered, and good solid work has been done to give us a real solid scope. When we talk about clearing trees, we also have a very specific number of trees, as I recall from the public hearings that I was at, that were analyzed and what would happen in routes and elevations and walkways and how accessible and elevation changes. All of that has been done. And in the 2012 process, as I recall, heavily debated, lots of public input. I'd like to see all those documents brought back because we're having the same questions today.
Yeah, we're into debate, and that's specific for the RFD. Right now, we're into the public hearing and questions surrounding what's ahead of us. We can continue this discussion at the RFD.
Right. So my point is not so much in debate, but the fact that there's ample information that's being asked of us tonight, that's already readily available within our administration. So, thank you.
Councillor Van Newkirk. I'm sorry, Ms. Winter. Hands down. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question for Mr. Shaver. If you could walk me through, so in the front end of your presentation, you had alluded to all of the open houses and input and stuff that you had. So further to what Councillor Hendriks had to say, when that path was determined to not be a dotted line on the map anymore because of the feedback you've got at those open houses, maybe you could just provide in this forum as a little more clearly or a little more in depth around why that trail in fact isn't there, and the trail that is proposed right now that reading through the package is actually supported by some residential input, and administration and yourself had worked through to get that trail there. Although it dumps onto a road, that is what it is. So if you could share some of that feedback from 2012 dotted line to the dotted line you have now, and what you actually heard from the public at the open houses. I know you were there in person, so thank you.
I appreciate that through you, Your Worship. No, thank you for the opportunity. As you said, we've had a number of open houses and information that's been sent with residents. As I say, it's to begin with, just to reiterate, when we first had the open house and the comments were about a trail there, even though the city of or town of Beaumont at that time had identified a connection through there, and it's identified in the 2007, I believe it was, original area structure plan or outline plan. So when that was brought up in the plan, said we had about 50%, half the people saying they wanted a trail and half didn't. And the half didn't were, again, more so people that were close by in the residential area that said we were concerned about the impact to this, the trees there. We'd like to keep it quiet. We don't want people running back there. There gets more people back there. There's parties. There's all kinds of reasons. And out of those that did say, no, we do like the idea of a connection. About half were in favor of it being a smooth asphalt trail without very little hills, so it can push the stroller, small bikes, wheelchair, versus other people saying, I like the idea of connectivity, but I'm concerned about putting in a trail there again, how many people, how busy it will be. So through our process of the development of Forest Heights, we looked at this quite closely and again worked with administration saying, okay, where do we get to? Because at that point it's decided, let's just identify on the outline plan, which is still a high level document, not a stage by stage subdivision, how we're going to do it. So when we got to that stage where that cul-de-sac is right now, that's already constructed, we did a very in-depth study and detailed an analysis, as Councillor Hendriks had mentioned. We looked at the grades, we did surveys in there, we had an arborist out there, we had a biologist out there. We took a look at the health of the trees, we looked at the roots, we looked at the width, we looked at the grading, and we designed a trail. And we moved it to the left and we moved it to the right, and we went around trees, and we did everything we could to try to minimize the impact. And we came out with a plan at that time, again in 2017, that actually showed the impact of the trees that would be affected. And those that would definitely need to be cleared, and then also beside it, 2 to 3 meters of trees that could be affected in the future, depending on where their roots were. So that was so significant that you got to some areas that you were clearing of a width of about 40 meters there, 30 meters of that 40 meters. So it didn't matter what you did. If you put it next to the residence on the west, if you put it next to the future lots on the right, there was going to be a small strip of trees. And again, our biologist and our arborist came and said, now, when you start doing that, you are in danger of losing those trees because there is an ecosystem there. They're connected, they're intertwined with the roots, the type of trees that you have in there as well. This is not one big, large area where you can cut a swath and it's okay because anything that's kind of damaged or under stress can be supported by trees to the right of it or the trees to the left. When you're down to narrow strips, you're basically losing that ability and you almost have to start all over. So that was part of the discussion at that time. Is the city prepared to eliminate or be prepared to lose the majority of those trees? So again, not just behind those lots, but even heading north to that connection, that east-west connection that we're showing, knowing that those trees can be lost. And then over time, they can be planted, replanted, little whips, grow it naturally, but it's going to be time to come back. And it was through the residents, very strong, saying we want to maintain those trees. Don't touch those trees. I mean, I can't talk to anyone specifically, but that was the overall consensus from those people that were adjacent to it, that they didn't want to lose those trees. So it was a trade-off between trees and connectivity, because that is the most direct route. That was what was in the city's plan. That was how it's going to be connected. So through a review with administration and through council, and like what I call it debate or discussion, and with other public hearings there, it was decided at that time, let's not touch those trees because the impact that we've shown, again, based upon studies, detailed studies, not just a line on the sand, is going to be too impactful. So hence why that one was eliminated, and why when the 2017 plan came up, it didn't show a trail there on the west side. And it was decided at that time to not have even a gravel trail, even though, again, we had shown and had that discussion that a gravel trail would be less impactful than certainly a 3-meter asphalt trail with proper grades. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah. No, I think that's a good background. And as I read through the information package, there were residents that had concerns, and their concerns weren't around the 2012 trail to now. The concerns were more around, I believe, reading through the document, the actual trees in the southwest corner in that wedge area. So yeah, so for myself, I'm Mayor, I'll be done with my line of questioning here, and I'd look forward to thank Mr. Shaver and look forward to hearing from the rest of the people in the public hearing tonight to hear what concerns residents are bringing to this public hearing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Fair enough. I see one last hand in from Councillor Swain. Do you want one final question and we'll wrap this up and move on?
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Shaver, I see that you talk about the development staging as part of this discussion on page 20 of your document. I'm hoping you can provide an update to us in terms of timing for this. So if this was approved, when would you be looking to get going? And maybe the other side of the coin is if it wasn't, what would a delay be to this decision for your plans?
Through you, Mayor, thank you very much, Councillor Swain, for that question. Our plan is to actually develop as soon as we can. We've had this plan, we've been working on it. I'll be honest, again, with the COVID and everything that's happened, we've had a lot of plans, and not just us, other people shelved. We've had builders walk away from our developments, walk away from payments, saying that they're not interested. We believe we've built up some very good momentum. We've developed, we believe, a very nice subdivision here in your city. And I think a very positive sign is that we have builders that will continue to want to build in here. So we are ready to go. I do appreciate the question, because sometimes you get the approval and yes, we won't wait, we'll wait a year, another year, No, our idea is to go as soon as possible. So that would mean if this gets approved tonight, and again, there's still detailed engineering that has to be done. There's still the subdivision comments. It's not like we're tomorrow taking any tree down or putting pipe in the ground. There's still work, but this gives us the next step and allows your administration as well to work with us to complete our plans, our drawings. I'd love to get into the ground in sometime in July. And because I believe it's probably going to take the full month of June to be able to go through and finalize our engineering drawings and our plans and our development agreement and everything else we have to do. But we'd want to put the underground in and get the road services. If we get pushed that much past July, with the size of stage that we have, then we start running into issues. We're going to be pushing against in October to try to construct roads. And we do that, then we're in winter, then we push to the following year. So, I do ask council, take a close look, but we are committed to doing that this year. It is a subdivision that we have, and I think it is a good news story to actually get some development going in the region, let alone specifically in Beaumont, because we have momentum there, and I'd hate to lose that momentum that we have.
Thanks for that important clarification. That's all from me, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, and thank you again, Patrick, for being with us tonight. It was an extensive amount of questioning, and I appreciate all the answers and that you've been giving us. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from here.
Thanks for your time.
All right, so next is those wishing to speak in favor of the bylaw. Ms. Winter, do we have anybody? Or the moderator?
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have anyone to speak in favor of this proposed amendment.
Okay, so I guess we're on to those that are opposed to the bylaw, so we can take first from here.
Thanks for your time.
Somebody can the moderator introduce, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have Zinni Burkroots and her husband who are going to present to council in opposition of the proposed outline plan.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Colin Brickreitz, and this is my wife, Zinni Brickreitz. I just want to say thank you, Mayor and councillors and administration for the opportunity to speak about this matter. I want to thank you, Patrick Shaver, for acknowledging our concerns, and thank you for rectifying and some of our concerns with your explanation tonight of the evaluated height of lot size and for your verification, the space between the lots and the southmost points. There's been numerous changes to the area in question, the last one being in 2017. We spoke about our concerns at that meeting, and we were pleased to hear that other residents, council, and administration, and even developers were all in agreement that the tree preservation was top priority. With that changes that there were implemented in the outline that year. Mr. Shaver, you kindly introduced yourself to us after the meeting and shook our hand, assuring us that there would be minimal tree loss with any new development. We appreciate that personable gesture so much, and it was wonderful to feel like our concerns were heard. And you're saying the same thing tonight. And we truly hope that you can follow through with that when it comes to the development. We appreciate seeing your passion about maintaining your stance about maintaining the trees and ecosystem within it.
The greatest concern for us was the new pathway proposal in the February 2020 plan. So we are very, very pleased that the path has now been shifted back to the east, which is similar to where it was approved in 2017, because this adjustment will avoid the unnecessary removal of a great deal of trees. And we 100% support the developer and administration's plan to avoid running the trail further west. As Councillor Hendriks, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, and Mr. Shaver stated tonight, this issue about the path going further west has been discussed at length in the past. And each time it's been very, very clear that it's just not feasible with the goal of tree preservation. So we just want to explicitly thank you for listening to our and other residents' concerns regarding the pathway, because it simply makes much more sense to run the pathway through an area that's basically almost bare land anyways. Regarding Councillor Stout's photos and suggestions, we are definitely not in support of moving the path further west again. And we agree with what was stated tonight by others, that the photos that were being shown are basically part of a public park and they weren't affecting individual residences. They weren't basically affecting those. And also the trees obviously around the path, it seems they had grown back and they were in a linear fashion, as someone else mentioned tonight. Yeah, we are really also grateful that the developer is trying to maintain as large lot sizes as possible. So thank you for that, Mr. Shaver. And we understand that market conditions play a role in this, and we just appreciate you working with administration and us as residents to figure out the best solution for all involved. We just hope that the larger lot sizes, as large as possible, can continue throughout the development and in any future proposals. Our primary concern still lies with the last remaining natural tree stand, because it's the last remaining tree stand in all of Triumph Estates in Forest Heights. And this, of course, is the area in question, which is found on the west and the south sections of the development. And as you can see from the attachments that we personally sent in with the progression of the plans for the southwest corner, there have been multiple amendments to this area, as we all know by now. And each time it just seems that more of the remaining natural area is being removed. And so that was a really great concern for us coming in here tonight. When the initial mass tree clearing was done, when development began in Forest Heights many years ago, a very distinct section of trees was initially preserved. I believe someone called it a wedge. You can see it protrude right into the area. So we just feel that that was an obvious intention for homes to be built around that tree wedge and not within it. And if you would take a moment to please look at the current color-coded development concept, we just want to show you that within this area named Forest Heights, how much green space can you really find? The L-shaped area of the existing tree stand is the only remaining area of natural and mature trees. And it makes up what seems to be like less than 1/10 of the entire subdivision. Forest Heights is such a beautiful neighborhood. We're happy to back onto it. It's a great neighborhood, and it advertises large mature trees on its signage. And so we feel strongly that these remaining woods are an integral part of what makes Forest Heights the appealing neighborhood that it is. So what we ask has been and continues to be consistent. We would like the developer and administration to figure out the best plan that does not affect the remaining trees and wildlife. We're wondering, is there a way to leave the tree stand alone and work around it? Now, with that being said, some of these concerns of ours have been answered tonight just in the thorough explanations of Mr. Shaver. It was really good to hear a bit more of explanation, and we're happy to hear things about the elevation, things like that. That's really helped. But we're still wondering, even with the current plan, could there simply not be a lot or two removed from that southwest corner to preserve the tree stand that is there? That's one of our questions. And we see that later in this very meeting, there's a discussion on urban forestry maintenance projects. And that sounds like a great initiative. And this goes right along with it, as far as we're concerned. Planting and preserving trees within the city, great initiative. We feel like this would be a great way to start. Why not preserve the mature trees that we actually have left? And we also saw in that same report attached to the council agenda that Beaumont now has an arborist. So we're wondering, could there be a collaboration with the city arborist and the developer to evaluate and maximize retention of the trees? Again, with that being said, we heard Mr. Shaver tonight say that this part of that was done in the past with their own arborist, which is great to hear. Maybe it could be done again with the city arborist just to maximize that preservation. Yeah.
We hope that our main concern is clear. So please preserve the remaining woodland by developing around it and not into it. And please keep the path in its current location.
Thank you for your time.
Hey, appreciate you coming in tonight. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Members of council have questions for the presenter? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Hey, Beth, thank you. And just for the utmost clarity, in the submission that was provided and is in the package, the April 2020 trail alignment is the trail alignment that you are supporting this evening. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
That's correct.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further questions, once again, thanks for the great presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time out tonight to come listen and present to us.
Thanks. We'll do it again soon.
Appreciate it. Okay. Can we, is there, I think we have 4 that are opposed. So I guess we can have the next person listening to speak tonight opposed to the bylaw.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep, if you just introduce yourself, that'd be great. Or Ms. Hendriks.
Yep, my name is Anthony Colesmith, and I'm a resident of Forest Heights. I'm opposed. And I'm wondering if it's possible to share my screen, as I have a very brief and concise presentation that'll help clarify my point.
Sure.
Now, the trick is I don't know how to share my screen.
There should be a little green button down at the bottom that says share screen.
The one that says share. Yeah, that's probably a good one. I'll start with that.
I was having technology problems tonight too. It's okay.
All right. Are you able to see?
Yep, we got you.
You can see my presentation here. Can you see the slide deck?
Yeah, we can see it. It's
okay. This will be brief. I'm sorry.
No
So I looked at the strat plan and I just had a couple of questions and concerns with the development as proposed versus the development that has already been approved. So the strat plan says, you know, it's a roadmap based on the priority of residents, and the plan reflects the council's commitment to the 6 pillars. And the 2 that I'm specifically going to address are the livability and connecting with citizens. So the livability one has 3 goals, which of course you guys know: the recreation, maintain a safe community, and create great public spaces. So if we look at here is the plan as approved, and here is the plan proposed. You can see that there's additional walkways, additional green spaces in the plan that was approved, and they're taken away in the proposed plan. So the amendment is, in my opinion, a step backwards from the spirit of the strategic plan's liability pillar, and specifically the goal of recreation. The next one is maintain a safe community. So I've done some math here, and what I've shown is in the 2017 version, counting the number of lots who would be leaving at this point, and I chose this point because it was the proposed original road here, that there were 26 lots exiting the neighborhood at that point. With the proposed amendment, starting about halfway, figuring that, you know, half would go this way and the other half would come this way, there's 52 lots exiting at that point, meaning that the traffic at this specific point that I'm pointing to with my black arrow, that's doubled. So with maintaining a safe community and knowing that we have so many children in Beaumont, and I expect that many of these lots will be taken up with families with young children, that by moving the road over here and eliminating that cul-de-sac, you've increased the traffic risk to all of the children along that lot. And it doesn't increase safety anywhere else to compensate. And I could accept that if the safety was increased at another point in the development, but it's not. It's just sacrificed at this point for the sake of, it would appear, adding extra lots. So the next one is making the great spaces. And much like the first point, we've lost some spaces, the public spaces. The walking paths, again, gone. I mean, right now with COVID, these walking paths have proven to be the only recreational facility available to everybody. I look out the window every day and I see families walking. I've seen dogs I've never seen before walking out there. The paths are getting a great use. And again, the proposed plan has fewer paths and less connectivity. And then just one comment about, I know I heard that it was advertised in the paper and somebody mentioned that it was advertised online, but I received a letter. And so the next part here is the connecting with our citizens and empowering citizens. The letter was dated May 12th, and we had to supply a response to the city clerk by noon on May 20th, which means there were 4 business days between 4 full business days between the date of the letter and the date of the response due. And given mail delivery impacts with the COVID situation and just general mail delivery, I feel like he may have gotten a lower number of respondents than expected. And that also goes against the spirit, in my opinion, again, of the connecting with citizens and also empowering citizens to speak at council. I've spoken to my neighbors in the cul-de-sac. I live in the cul-de-sac just north of the development. And every one of them has said, you know, they prefer the cul-de-sac. They like the idea of it. They're concerned about the extra traffic, but they didn't get a chance to register online to speak. So I think, or I'd appreciate it if you would take that into consideration when making your decision tonight. And in a nutshell, that is my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate you taking the time to come in and chat with us tonight, and you raised some good points, and I'm sure we'll take that into consideration as we go forward. Are there questions from members of council for the presenter? Great, seeing none, once again. Oh, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Anthony, thanks for taking the time to come in. I think that's great. You're able to regroup and get some slides together and share the screen. That's awesome. Quick question for you. Were you there at the time when the open houses happened originally? Like, were you able to give your input in the beginning, or did you move in later?
We moved in right as the development was approved for the 2017. So we missed the open houses for the first go round, which, if I may say, I think it would be beneficial, you know, if you wanted to reopen that. There are additional people living here now, and perhaps their voice could be heard as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just wondering on the timing if you would be able to give us some history too, but that's great. Fine. Thank you, Mayor.
Sticking. Councillor Danlock, did I see your hand go up? Did you want to? No. Okay, seeing no further hands raised. Once again, thanks you for presenting tonight. Well, like I said before, we'll take your points into consideration, and we appreciate your spending the time with us this evening to make the presentation.
Thank you.
Can we get our third resident, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have Greg Homunsky, who will be joining us to speak in opposition of the proposed outline plan.
Public hearing whenever you're ready to present.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you whenever you're ready, sir.
Great. My name is Greg Homunsky, and I live in Triumph Estates. I guess I have a couple concerns, but particularly, I guess I want to tell you that I bought a lot here in 2008. I didn't copy this to, and I'm still here, but I'm hoping that I could show you the development concept. I take it there's a huge time delay in what I see on the screen versus what I'm saying to you, Mr. Stewart. Hello?
There's a bit of a lag. Sorry, I was on mute. There's a bit of a lag, so
okay.
Just present normally, and then we'll just catch it. If it glitches, we'll catch up back up to you.
Okay. I tried to show the concept plan that was presented way back in 2000 and actually it was 1999 or so. I guess my concern and my thought is when you buy a lot with certain commitments to a development where you are and a development where you're going to be backing onto, you get a feeling of where you are and what it's going to be. I've gone through 5 of these changes. In every case, lots were added. I can appreciate the way and the needs change. I'm on a 50-foot pocket, and I realize that is not going to be seen probably ever again for a long, long time. My concern, though, is you're adding more and more lots to this every time you bring out a new concept. And just in counting the lots going down the north and south of 41st versus the 2017 versus your 2020, you've gone from 5 to 6 lots. When you look around the corner, you've gone from, I believe, 6 to 8 lots. All the time you're adding lots and you're making it smaller and smaller. You're changing the feel of the community, and I don't think for the better. Again, the number of changes, is that fair to anybody that comes in early and sort of says, this is what I can expect? But no, it's not there. It's not what I can expect. I can expect another change. I guess my biggest concern, and the representative from the contractor, which I don't believe he's here with us anymore, suggested that they're reducing the height. When you look at the height from 50th Avenue to 49th, it goes down. You go to 46th Avenue and it goes up. In fact, the change from Triumph, the height of land at Triumph Gate to the new back area that they have shown there now, it's gone up almost 3 meters. So that means when they build a house there, they're going to start off 3 meters higher than I am. So if they build a 2-story house there, they're going to be up to almost 30 feet, overlooking backwards onto the other, all at the wishes of the developer. You know, I remind you, councillors, that you're here to help make sure that we have a community that you represent me. You don't represent the contractor. Mr. Shaver is back. I hope you've heard some of my comments, but you're suggesting it's going to go back down. To what level above Triumph Gate? I'd like to find that out. Which you were speaking of 17 meters from north to south. Well, from what I saw on the map and what I measured and then what I called in for, it's more like 10 meters that there's space at the back. 5 meters on our side on Triumph Gate and 5 meters on the other side. So again, we're squeezing more and more into a smaller area. Certainly this is not 2008 or 2009 when we had everything was going crazy and you couldn't talk to a developer because he didn't have time or the product to show you. And so it may take longer to sell these, but by dividing it up into smaller and smaller pieces, just so you can sell it, what are you councillors helping to leave us when they're gone? I'm concerned. That's my presentation.
Well, I appreciate you coming in tonight, and I appreciate the points that you've raised. You're right. There's a whole lot of things that we as council have to take into account, and part of it is the changing landscape in relation to the growth plan that we're all under within the region too. So I appreciate your comments, and I'll open it up to questions from members of council. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation and presenting to us tonight, and we'll take it under advisement as we continue forward this evening.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Ms. Winter, can we get our fourth person? We as council have to take into account, and part of it is the changing landscape in relation to the growth plan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next we have Keith Watcher and Sherry Watcher, and they're going to be speaking in opposition of the proposed outline plan.
Thank you very much. Keith, whenever you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Stewart and councillors for speaking to us this evening. I'd like to start by saying, you know, prior to this, I wasn't for or against without hearing what the developer there had said. And lots of my questions have been answered in the meeting coming up, but some of the concerns we have are basically the same concerns that I've heard kind of over and over again. So back onto the green space is where we back onto, like, and I think Greg there, which is one of my neighbors here, said it there, like the elevation changes here going through around Beaumont here is substantial, like especially if you've ever walked through this green space that backs onto Glenberry Meadows there and in Forestry Height. It's a lot, and even from my backyard to Glenberry Meadows is a big height change for that. And what Greg had said there too, for having houses that are built, if you get a 2-story house built that far up, it does become a privacy concern to people that are directly backing onto it. The other thing that was discussed here in length here was the trail system. And, you know, I'd like to say that, you know, Beaumont has done, you know, a great job of connecting the trail systems throughout the town, having kids and doing a lot of biking. And my wife's an avid runner. She's seen most of it, probably 50 times over. There's many trail system in Beaumont here that aren't connected as we bike with the kids. And I don't feel that the last remaining green space we have in Forest Heights that we back onto, it'd be a tough sell for me to get rid of the natural tree space there to put a trail system in there when there's many trail systems in Beaumont that don't connect already. The other thing I'd like to speak on here too is living in Triumph Estates here. So when we built our house here in Triumph Estates, the original developer here in Triumph Estates, as many of you might know, went bankrupt building and developing, and it was never really kind of finished properly. I mean, it was years before we even got a sign. And a lot of the fencing, storm drains, stuff like that, and even the empty lots that have plagued our area because of that, where lots were built or bought when it was, say, boom times for nickel on the dollar and now sit empty. I'd like to see more emphasis put from Beaumont into, you know, finishing developing areas before we move on to other areas. Especially when you look at Triumph Estates here, when we back onto a green space, you know, partway through building in Triumph Estates to back on was one of the main reasons we bought this lot, and the main reasons our neighbors who were on here bought these lots as well. So when you back onto green space and you've invested into Triumph Estates, even at the same time the developer was going broke, it's nice to see that what you bought into and what we were told was going to stay doesn't change. Like Greg had mentioned too previously, this has changed, you know, 5 or 6 times to the point where it just keeps getting smaller, more developed. And those are some of my concerns.
Appreciate you taking the time out to come and present to council tonight, and we will take your thoughts and concerns under consideration as we go forward. I will open it up to questions from members of council. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So once again, thank you very much for your time and appreciate your coming to present to council this evening.
Thank you.
All right, just one last clarification, Ms. Winter. We have nobody else wishing to speak in opposition?
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have any more presentations for people wishing to speak in opposition.
Do we have any person wishing to speak that deems themselves affected that wishes to be heard?
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have any presentations for anyone deemed affected.
Does planning and development or the applicant wish to make a final concluding statement, starting with planning and development? Emily?
I just want to, just a point of clarification on procedure. Would this concluding statement be separate from an additional statement that I might make in advance of debating the resolution?
Yeah, you'll introduce the RFD for decision and you'll be able to make that statement then. This is
okay.
Just to bring up to close off the public hearing.
Okay, in that case, there's nothing I'll add at this time.
Okay. Mr. Shaver, wish to make a concluding statement before we wrap?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I appreciate the time and I appreciate all the comments from the citizens. Again, it's helpful when we do get the information that we are able to look at it and apply. So, you know, especially the first commentary there. Thank you guys very much for your kind words. We do honestly try to work, and I understand the people's concerns, and I know the comments that were raised from the original plan back in 2007 or 1999. I think what we're trying to do is compare this to our approved 2012 plan, which the road network's identical to where it was before. We did, and I do again appreciate the residents moved in the meantime there when we had that long cul-de-sac. And I'll be honest, I would have loved to keep it too. Absolutely, that's why we did it. To undertake these amendments and stuff, it's cost me over $100,000. So we don't take this lightly. We don't take it lightly saying, let's see what happens if I can throw it in. Let me get another lot in there. I don't get any more money for any more lots. It's sold on the frontage. So if I have 10 lots and now I go to 11 lots, there's no change in the revenue of this. We're not trying to grab something else. We are trying to be respectful of what the market is. And I do appreciate what people are saying. You do have a plan, you don't change. Again, we're trying to be respectful for ourselves and our company and how long it does take sometimes to sell those very large lots. We are committed to keeping those large lots along the west. Yes, we've added one more to there. But other than that, no, if I could have kept that, it would have been correct. We would have loved to have done that. This is an exercise that does take time. It does take money. I do appreciate the comments and the concerns. I think the idea about moving the trail to that mid block is good. What I will commit to, again, is we will not take down any trees possible that we can. We will also make sure that anything that we do will be reinstated with other trees. I think the idea of it being natural behind is a great idea there. So anyways, it's, again, I appreciate the comments. We're trying to do what we can. We think we've reached a balance here between both connectivity and tree retention. I think we've heard from both sides on it right now. I'll leave it up to yourselves. If there are any further questions in the future, I'd be happy to address them. But thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for your comments today.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Once again, appreciate you coming out tonight and answering all our questions during this public hearing. All right, so at this point, we'll declare the public hearing closed. And because we've been sitting for an hour and a half, I'm going to declare a 5-minute break. And then we will get back to the RFD that's part of this agenda item. Call the meeting of Tuesday, May 26, 2020 back to order. That was a great public hearing, lots of good discussion, lots of good points brought up, which brings us to request for decision for to adopt the Forest Heights Outline Plan Amendment. And I guess I'll pass it back to Ms. Sangster.
Oh, okay, here I am. All right, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to share my screen again and pull up another slide here. Oh, that's not how I do it. Bear with me. Apologies. And we'll go to current slide. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Worship, members of Council. At this point, you've heard many of the issues associated with this application. And so for context to the consideration of the resolution, I just wanted to provide some additional information about how administration has worked to balance a variety of interests in this application. So the land use concept has been amended through discussion with the applicant from its original submission, as you have in attachment 5 of the council package. And the original concept still reverted to the original 2012 road network configuration along here with no cul-de-sac. The original concept removed the previously proposed public utility lot here between the north and south stormwater management facilities. And it also proposed the shared use pathway passing through the wedge in the southwest corner, passing along behind Triomphe Gate and Triomphe Close, and then continuing to the south. This concept was, as per our usual procedure, circulated to all landowners within 100 meters of the amendment area and also circulated to external agencies. And as previously noted, public concerns associated with the initial concept were focused mainly on the route of the pathway, the impacts to the tree stand, the potential for noise due to the new roadway configuration, and the density of some of the housing proposed in this area south of 46th Avenue. So through discussions with the applicant, as you've heard, we've learned that part of the southwest wedge of municipal reserve in this area would need to be cleared regardless due to the grading requirements for adjacent lots. And so the revised land use concept in this area identifies it for residential development, shortens some of the lot depth through here, and shifts the municipal reserve further to the east along 46th Avenue. So this allows for some additional tree retention, where's my mouse, between the south side of Forest Heights and the north side of Triomphe Gate in this area. And with respect to connectivity, I know there was some discussion about this during the public hearing. One of the considerations that we had with respect to connectivity was not necessarily just trail connectivity, but also providing options for route choices through communities and between various communities. So certainly we acknowledge that there's not a direct trail connection between this area in the northern part of the neighborhood and this area in the south. This is a relatively low traffic area. may potentially have sidewalks as well. One of our main considerations in wanting to provide some connectivity through here was to avoid a situation where residents in this area, in order to go south, would need to pass all the way to the east and around and continue south. It's a question of providing people with route choices and different route options in order to make travel on our pathway system as convenient as it possibly can be. So that was one of the considerations that we have in talking about alignment with municipal development plan policies regarding connectivity. And as proposed, with respect to the road network, as this was previously approved as part of the 2012 amendment and is not anticipated to be a high traffic route, we didn't propose revisions to address this concern. Our perspective being that 38th Street is the collector road that offers a more direct route for traffic through traffic to 50th Avenue. And so traffic on 46th Avenue is much more likely to be local and unlikely to cause noise issues. We also note that the outline plan amendment does not propose changes to the type of housing that is contemplated in the plan area. The plan has always contemplated detached and semi-detached homes, and this is consistent with the municipal development plan policy that defines low density housing to include both of these housing types. So again, we do not propose revisions in response to that concern. With respect to engaging with the community and residents on this topic, as I noted, we've maintained our usual circulation procedures. So early in the application, this was circulated to landowners in the area of the application and external agencies. When it came time to hold a public hearing on this application, we've also maintained our public hearing circulation procedures. So that includes mail outs again to adjacent landowners 2 weeks prior, notification on the web and via newspaper. I appreciate that we've had some slight procedure changes due to COVID-19 that asked people wishing to present at the public hearing to register with the clerk on a slightly shorter timeline. But in terms of providing substantive comments, we do believe that we've maintained the procedures as well as we can. So overall, as we noted previously, administration's view is that the amended Forest Heights outline plan as currently proposed is consistent with the policies and the land use concept of the MDP. We believe this concept provides the best possible balance between allowing for development flexibility, providing trail connectivity within and between neighborhoods, and retaining the natural area in the southwest corner of the neighborhood. So with this in mind, we ask Council to pass a resolution adopting this amended outline plan, or alternatively, to let us know how you'd like administration to proceed. Thanks very much for your attention, and we'd be happy to answer questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction to this. As stated, we have a request for decision before us to either approve the amendment plan or give administration direction on which way we want to go. So as we move into debate, is there a member of council prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Moncaswain.
Yeah, I can move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. All right, so discussion on the motion. Councillor Moncaswain.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure if
Yeah,
you let me continue, carry on. So first, I just want to acknowledge and thank the residents who did come in and participate during the public hearing process. This is kind of strange for us to be online, but even stranger for you guys to sign in at your homes. So I appreciate you guys, taking the opportunity to provide council with your comments. I wanted to thank administration for clarifying two questions I had. One regarding the notification about the public hearing and how that procedure went through. So I appreciate the clarification on that, as well as the clarification around that the wedge issue where we talked about where it was mentioned that whether that is going to be used for residential or not, that those trees would need to go. So I guess the only question I had left was if you look at the 2017 plan versus 2020 plan, Emily, I apologize. I'll get you to try and pull that up again if you don't mind. So while you do that, maybe I'll ask the question. In our updated MDP, we talk about wanting to get away from cul-de-sacs, and so I was wondering if administration could just provide a bit more clarification around that. So the 2017 one obviously has that cul-de-sac, and the updated version now provides that connectivity there from a roadway perspective. So Thanks for doing that. So from I don't know who's best to speak this, if it's Emily or Kendra or someone, but can you just provide just a clarification about what our MDP says regarding the cul-de-sac versus what we're trying to achieve with the updated MDP around cul-de-sacs?
Okay, this is Emily here. I can speak to that a little bit just once I find myself in the right window. I do apologize having a, nope, that's not right. This might be as good as I'm going to get. Okay. Yes, thank you very much for the question. You are right that there is direction, in fact, in our municipal development plan to minimize cul-de-sacs, specifically both policy 4.5.7 and 8.1.2. The issue in general is the transportation corridors are intended to be designed to balance the needs and priorities of a variety of users, and it is intended to again to prioritize that connectivity aspect. And so in support of that objective, the MDP does contain some direction to try to minimize cul-de-sacs where possible.
Yeah, so thank you. So the clarification is, the direction is to try and minimize. It doesn't say they're forbidden, but the direction. No. Yeah, okay. That's all I had. I got some comments, but I'll let others weigh in with some questions there, Your Worship, and come back to me. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, coming into the evening, one of the biggest questions for myself after going through the package and chatting with some residents is around the wedge of trees in the southwest and what can actually be done to try and save those. But I think I've had that answer 3 or 4 times. I'm going to ask once more for ultimate clarity. And I even believe that Ms. Sangster said it in the beginning, but I didn't hear of a scenario due to topography that saved the wedge of the trees in the southwest. Is that true? I'm just looking for a comment from admin.
That's correct. One of the things that we initially explored with the applicant when we were first looking at ways to modify the proposal and look at other ways to route the trail was to see how much, in fact, we would need to provide in this area. I'm trying to find my mouse. This area here, how wide this section of municipal reserve might need to be in order to accommodate a trail, and whether there was in fact a possibility of having the municipal reserve strip in that area that could accommodate the trail while also potentially maintaining the wedge in the corner where there are some trees standing. And through discussions with the applicant, as you've noted, because of some of the grading issues, the smaller that wedge gets, the less and less feasible it actually is to maintain trees in that location. So essentially, if we were to shift a portion of it further to the east, there's issues with the grading in that location. There's actually very minimal street frontage, which might also be kind of a potential safety concern. And our overall perspective through that discussion was that it would be better to close that off and provide even a little bit wider space to allow for a more gently sloped trail in that section to the east where we've shown the trail concept passing now. We thought about splitting it into 2, and it seemed that it was technically unfeasible.
Follow-up?
Yeah, you bet. And I think your opening statement about trying to strike a balance is probably the key to this. You're trying to strike a balance between trails, trees, and market demands. And the current trail alignment we heard support for from residents. Proposed, administration worked with the developer to propose this, and it's a hard to find balance. So I'm happy to hear what other councillors have to say, and maybe I'll weigh in further a little bit later on there. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hendriks.
Your Worship, thank you. My question is, which design leaves us with more trees?
Ms. Sangster?
I think it's a difficult question. Are you sorry, just for clarification, between the originally proposed 2020 concept and the currently proposed?
Yeah, so what we've got approved currently versus what's being asked for us today. Which one creates more trees by way of math, by way of definition?
I think it's a difficult question to answer simply because we don't have the full extent of as Mr. Shaver noted, we don't have the full extent of the grading drawings and knowledge of what the grading would require to be removed in this corner here. Right now it's shown as being green municipal reserve, but through later stages of the design process and through refinement of the grading requirements, as he noted, there's likely to be some tree removal required here. And so it's difficult to know whether it would be the whole wedge, whether it would be a part. So, and there's not, this is essentially, as some of the residents noted, more open space. So it's difficult to know at this stage whether there will be any trees that are retainable in here, or yeah, it's not something that we can answer definitively at this time, I don't think.
Okay, then which design provides more privacy for the current homeowners that back onto the property?
I think that's also a difficult question to answer with respect to what people's thoughts are on privacy. I mean, there's still going to be, with the revised design here, a buffer of trees between the back of these lots and the back of these lots. Without knowing specifically how easy it is to see through those trees, it's a hard question for me to answer. But as Mr. Shaver noted, there have been some lot depth reduction here, and these trees are being retained. So,
right. So
I think it's a difficult comparison. Okay.
Well, I understood that there was $100,000 spent on something to design something to create something. So ultimately, there's an elevation, main floor elevation that'll be established. You're putting a two-story home on the property that then will, obviously impact the neighboring properties to the rear. So my question is, which design has more impact? So we can't answer the issue regarding trees, and we can't answer the issue regarding privacy. And those, to me, were the two issues that were being discussed here tonight through all the public hearing discussions.
I think, sorry, was there a comment to be made, or?
No, I think those are my questions. Like,
okay.
We as councillors have to have something to lean on in terms of making a decision. So if we can't answer the big question, which is the trees, then we can't answer the question regarding privacy. Which question do you want solved tonight?
I think the strongest answer I can offer at this time is that the impacts in this area here between the 2017 concept and the current concept are, I would say, likely to be fairly similar, because we are maintaining the integrity of the tree stand through this area in both concepts. And I gather that is probably the largest contributor to some of the noise and privacy issues that have been raised.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I find this very interesting. And like Councillor Hendriks, I have also some questions around the elevation. That was the one piece that I was left with not enough clarity on. And I wonder if administration could just tell me if this is the same issue that the last resident was referring to, and is it privacy or is it elevation for some other reason that he was raising that? I am confused about that.
Ms. Sangster?
I am also a little bit unclear, but I will do my best to answer based on my understanding. I gather that the resident's concern was related to this corner here and how the grading had been built up in that location to allow for proper drainage and the road network. I gather from Mr. Shaver's comments that in the 2017 concept, it might even have been built up a little bit higher. It would have been required to be built up a little bit higher even than it would be in this concept. So in that sense, it's possible that this concept would allow for a slightly lower elevation of the houses built in that location. I am not sure that I'm in the best position to speak to the details on that, however.
So then, Ms. Sangster, the last resident was not concerned about privacy? And these houses are being built there that are going to be much larger than and reaching over because of the hill. Is that your understanding, and that's been addressed in this plan?
I gather that he was.
He didn't use those exact words. That's why I'm just.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
I need to put you on the spot. I probably should have asked him that question, but I didn't connect the two dots until just now. So I appreciate that Hendriks raised that issue.
Sorry, through your worship to Councillor Barnhart here, if I could just tie in, it's Kendra Raymond.
Yep, go ahead.
What I believe that we heard the comments were regarding was mainly regarding privacy. As Ms. Sangster said, there's still going to be a buffer of trees between these two areas. So Triumph will still have a buffer to Forest Heights to the north. Undulating properties, as he mentioned, it is naturally hilly. There's naturally a topography gradient as that is. But the way that that will be designed, there's still there's still large mature trees that will be blocking that view and providing some buffer between the two. So you don't have somebody right adjacent along your back fence. So you won't be able to stand out on your deck, as it were, and to be able to shake the hand of your neighbor behind you. So there will still be privacy.
Thank you, Ms. Raymond.
Follow up, Councillor? No. Okay, circling back around to Councillors Moncada, Swain, and Van Newkirk, who indicated a desire to speak twice. But I think Councillor Van Newkirk, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about just being about balance and balancing the needs of the neighbors, what's come before, what's come with the market, COVID-19, and all the rest of the issues that have cropped up since this development started. And it doesn't look like the trees, I can understand that being a concern, and keeping them is a priority. But it doesn't look like there's too many impacts between the three for me anyway. So I'll just leave it at that, because I'm leaning towards voting in favor of this amendment this evening. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. And just in response to Councillor Hendriks's questions and some of the answers from admin, what I did hear from the developer, Mr. Shaver, tonight was that in the cul-de-sac scenario, there was going to be a physical topographical buildup, and that I believe he indicated that in the proposed 2020 concept that 47th Ave, as it swung south, was going to follow more topographically, but that's as scientific, or that's as close scientifically or engineering wise as we got for an answer to that tonight. So I think the privacy concern is a legitimate one, and it sounded to me like the privacy concern was less of an issue with what's proposed than the cul-de-sac. But definitively, I don't think we'll know that tonight, as administration said. So that's all I was going to add in. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Moncada Swain, followed by Councillor Danlock, followed by Councillor Stout, followed by Councillor Hendriks.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I'll reiterate. The most important thing to me was to look at the balance between the connectivity and keeping the treescape in place. I'm certainly not a fan of the trail there and eliminating a significant amount of trees. I think everyone's hit on that tonight, and I really appreciate the work to reduce the lot depth from those southern residences there that back onto Triumph Estates. So ultimately, the recommendation that's in front of us, and what I've heard from Mr. Schaefer, is the commitment to maintain to keep as many trees as possible while developing a key area in our city. So if we look at the 2012 option, and I realize that's not in front of us, but you look at that with the trail there, that would eliminate a significant amount of trees, which I don't think anyone's for. I'm not a fan of cul-de-sacs generally, hence our conversation regarding the MDP, and that option in 2017 doesn't look like it saves that many more trees. So I mean, ultimately, unless we don't want to develop this area at all, I'm in favor of this recommendation, that reducing the lot depth, keeping that that 17 meters there of those trees allows a key area in our city to be developed, which it's great that we've got builders willing to come in here and develop this area. And I think it really strikes a balance between the concerns identified from the residents versus what's being proposed here from administration. So I'm in favor of this and looking forward to voting on this tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I just want to again thank the presenters for seating publicly and the advocate as well too. My only thoughts are that my first impression was that there'd be a clear cutting behind the green wedge there on the 2017 approved concept. As Councillor Stout mentioned, I did a walk through this morning, got to get a feel for it. And there is a bit of a reasonably good sized buffer on the very left corner, southwest corner of the diagram between the Triumph houses and the proposed lots with the cul-de-sac there with the green wedge. So I'm going to put a lot of faith in Mr. Schaefer's words to maintain as many trees as possible as a buffer between the proposed cul-de-sac and the south point there to the homes back on Triumph. I'm going to take his word at that value, and many people are concerned about the trees and privacy, so I believe he'll follow through on his commitments tonight to mitigate any kind of privacy issues and maintain as many trees as he possibly can. So I do appreciate the chance to make a few comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship.
Oop, you're still on mute, Councillor.
Pardon. There we go. That's better. Sorry, defeated by the technology yet again. Yeah, find myself in a quandary on this one because I'll be quite frank, and nobody was surprised to learn that I'm disappointed that we lose so much trail connectivity. I apologize if I wasted anybody's time with asking questions of in the public hearing there to which other people already knew the answers or were familiar with all the work that was going on previously, but I really wanted to get a definitive answer as to why we couldn't, or what the consequences would be, because I think it emerged that it was certainly possible of persisting with that trail. Evidently there's a big loss of trees and obviously a lot of residents were not, probably perhaps even the majority were not in favor of that, and yeah, that's all understandable, but I wanted to make sure that was clear. I'm disappointed that looking at the 2017 concepts, that does maintain trail connectivity without going through the wooded area there and losing all the trees, but that creates some other issues as we've already discussed. So then I'm torn now choosing between the original 2020 concept and the revision that's planned, because the difficulties then become, we're losing the wedge. If I understood that correctly, we're losing that wedge of trees on the corner of what was the cul-de-sac and is now a through route. Is that correct? Can we just confirm that one last time? That goes anyway, regardless of which option we choose in terms of trees.
Ms. Raymond or Ms. Sangster?
This is Emily here. Yes, that is correct. Our understanding is that while we don't know the precise limits of the grading that would be required in that area, much if not all of that wedge would need to be cleared to grade adjacent lots.
Okay, so it's a done deal. Those trees are gone, effectively, unless we choose not to develop this area or devise some completely different development plans.
Ms. Raymond?
I would just wanted to actually maybe have Mr. Shaver clarify on his 2020 original concept that he submitted that's on page 89 of your agenda package. Would that wedge still have to disappear? I know that the reason that we weren't in support of the original concept was due to many of the concerns that you heard tonight regarding a lack of privacy and the trail going behind people's houses, which is why we strive to keep the trail very similar to what was approved in 2017, because we had significant public backlash on that trail at that time due to privacy concerns. And this would actually impede a lot of people's privacy if we do go back to that original proposed 2020 concept, because that trail will be directly behind those people's already built homes and constructed homes there, and we would be losing more trees probably through the development of that. But as for the wedge itself, I don't know if that wedge could then actually remain, if that was the big concern for council, to have that wedge over the trail going behind people's homes. So it was just a question I have.
Is Mr. Shaver still available to answer that one?
Your worship, I'm available. Am I allowed to answer that?
Well, I might get in trouble from our legislative clerk, but I'm going to let you speak anyway.
Appreciate that, because there is, some clarifications. From the proposed 2020 concept that's on the screen right now, as Ms. Raymond had mentioned, that trail would go behind the residence there, and we'd be clearing, as much as it showed it very tight to the that property, we'd be clearing almost all the trees in that wedge, again, just to be able to get up and match the city standards in terms of grades up there. So then moving to the 2020 concept plan, again, that eliminated going over that far. Again, it had to be approximately that wide to meet the city standards. So when it was first proposed, keep the wedge and do that in a small, 6-meter public utility lot, we looked at that, we thought potentially, and then concluded that that wasn't possible. I will propose, because I am committed to developing a good neighborhood, and I've heard what the residents have. Just once the 2017 plan, it is as much as there are some good things, and I do appreciate connectivity. I'm a ex-transportation engineer, and road connectivity, pedestrian and stuff is very important to me. As I mentioned, we just weren't able to do that. So it's not a matter of choosing one between the other. If this one doesn't approve, well, we're not going to develop 2017. But what I will propose is that the wedge, we've got a lot on my lotting there, and I've just been looking at it through this conversation, that I will hold off or take off a lot in that corner where that wedge is right now to retain the trees that are there already. So as discussed, we had cleared the trees and not cleared any more than we possibly wanted to before, until we knew how the detailed design would be, hence why those trees are still there in the wedge. As we've talked about, and this administration has correctly confirmed, that regardless which plan it was, that wedge is going to go, whether it's 2017, the 2020 proposed, or 2020 concept. But I will, if we can get this, on that, it's not a condition, I can't, but I will propose, because that seems to be one of the biggest things in terms of privacy or conditions, that the one lot that's closest to the Triumph Cul-De-Sac, the first Cul-De-Sac, we will take off as long as we work with administration and administration concurs, and those trees that are there will keep those trees. So the comment about each plan would retain the trees, right now it's the same between the 2017 plan and the 2020 plan. It's the identical, so hopefully that addresses Councillor Hendriks, Councillor Burkhart's questions. In terms of elevation, the 2017 plan, the cul-de-sac is higher because we have to drain the sanitary back to the north. This way we don't. But in now, after hearing the residents and being committed to here, I would leave off a lot in that corner where the trees are. And I believe, again, there'd have to be probably some grading on each side, but we'd be able to retain trees.
Okay.
Hopefully that clarifies.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I now have a process question for Ms. Raymond. Would you like to go work with Mr. Shaver and make that amendment on a drawing and bring it back, or can we vote on this tonight with that proposal, or how do you want to handle this? Because now we're voting on something that's
yeah, and I didn't want to mess it up. I apologize there, but I
it's okay.
Do the right thing here. Like I said, we're committed to moving as quick as possible. Sure. Kendra.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council can choose to make an amendment to the proposed concept that is in front of them tonight, proving that subject to, say, the wedge in the southwest corner being retained as municipal reserve.
And there's a quick question for administration. Do you have, with the proposal in front of us, I know it's putting you on the spot, do you have any concerns with the proposal that's presented by Mr. Shaver?
If we could just confirm if we're talking about the currently proposed or going back to the originally proposed.
Well, we're on the currently proposed with leaving the one lot with the wedge of trees.
We have no concerns with that. We would be happy to accept that.
So, okay, so I will make an amendment.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Can we just get that clarification? Because I heard you say that, Mayor. I just want to make sure that that's I think that's what I'm hearing. I just want to hear Mr. Schaefer just confirm that we're looking at the screen on the right, the currently proposed concept, but adding in that wedge and that cul-de-sac right there. Thank you, Emily. Is that what you're sharing, Mr. Schaefer?
Yeah, through your worship, in terms of the exact size and dimension, again, we have to make sure it works with the lots and stuff, but that is what I will agree to. If that is an amendment to this plan, I will agree to accepting that amendment going forward for vote.
Okay, so
Mr. Shaver, is that lot 36 shown in the plan?
Well, it's not actually shown in the plan. It's just shown as things. We're not seeing a lot.
Yeah, I've got the notification documents here for the subdivision appeal. Not appeal.
Yeah, no. As Mr. Shaver just stated, that they'll have to go back and figure that out. So there may be configuration.
So could I just clarify a couple of things as well, then, please? So in answer to Councillor Hendriks' earlier questions, as you are now proposing it, this modification leaves us with more trees. Is that correct from what I just understood you to say?
Through your worship, if you're addressing me, Councillor Stout, that yes, this would leave more trees than the 2017 approved outline plan.
I was thinking, yes, but the 2017 outline plan isn't, as you've just alluded to, isn't really an option, right? You're not going to reiterate, you're not going to reapply that. This is a choice, as I understand it now, between the proposed 2020 concept and the modified one. Which does the modification in front of us leave us with more trees than we had before?
Through your Councillor, yes. If the modification is we're comparing the currently proposed 2020 concept plan to what we're suggesting and what's on the table in terms of opening up a lot of the wedge there, that will leave more trees than the currently proposed concept plan that was originally.
That's an important question, which okay, and then secondly, does it also address some of the privacy concerns raised by some of the presenters this evening?
Through your worship, I believe it does. Again, I think we're approximately 17 meters, so they say 16.9 from property line to property line, and that is at the narrowest point. So certainly, it's probably the narrowest point where we will be holding off that lot or taking that lot off. So that distance between a back of lot to the other back of lot would increase, maybe 18, 19, pushing 20 meters. So there would be a larger distance between lots, a larger distance between homes, and we're retaining more trees, especially down at the bottom. I would then suggest, yes, there's a greater element of privacy with this amendment than there was originally. So
the proposed amendment leaves more trees and creates and improves privacy for residents in Triumph Estates, certainly.
I would suggest so. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Those are both important points. Given what we've heard, okay, thank you. You've addressed my question. And yeah, like Councillor Monkoff-Swain, I appreciate all the public input as well on this one. I've wavered from one perspective to another, and I want to commend the people who came in to raise their concerns, because it's quite a daunting process normally, let alone with the peculiarities of the computer technology, video technology. So thank you for putting your opinions, bringing your opinions forward. It's helped me form a decision, and I will cede the floor.
Okay, getting this back under control. As I was saying before Councillor Stout got on a roll, I'm prepared to modify my motion to add that amendment as proposed.
Your worship, if I may.
My motion.
Oh, sorry, Councillor. I will ask Councillor
Swain has moved. Thank you.
Sorry, I got lost. I will ask Councillor Monkoff-Swain if he's prepared to amend his motion, or if I have to do it formally.
I'm prepared to amend the motion. I don't know if Ms. Winder, if you've got enough. I think we heard it. We heard what we're looking for, but I don't know if you have what you need in order to document that appropriately. Do you need clarification on the language for the amended motion?
I have it all written down. Thank you, Your Worship, through Councillor Swain.
So I'm willing to amend that motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Actually, Councillor Moncalfe-Swain, you were next on the speakers list. If you want to continue on.
Yeah, I don't. At the risk of drawing this out any further, I wonder if Ms. Raymond or Ms. Sangster could just provide just a bit of clarification on the process. So if this gets approved today, if we get enough votes to move this to next step, can you just briefly just remind us the process here of what happens after this in terms of review back in with administration and back through the process?
Ms. Raymond?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Moncalfe-Swain. What will happen after that is, so this would be approved. The next step is to undertake the subdivision, which, as Councillor Stout alluded to, is already in circulation right now. That will need to be adjusted, but can be worked through. We will work with Mr. Shaver to adjust his outline plan concept as per Council's resolution tonight, and that will show what has been actually approved here. We will post that on the website and social media as well, letting people know that that has been done and completed and close the loop with people who have commented. And so this goes out for the subdivision. There will need, like I said, there will need to be some modifications probably to that circulation potentially. And we will work through on that. And then engineering drawings will determine the exact location and how much the trees and that sort of thing as they review the landscaping drawings with Select Engineering.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay.
No, that's pretty straightforward.
All right. Last on the speakers list tonight, Councillor Danluck, and then we'll call the question.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I won't debate anymore on the tree thing. Thank Mr. Shaver for that friendly amendment to the plan, and Councilor Moncalfe-Swain for endorsing that amendment. That's awesome, and it's a nice compromise. One quick question. I was doing my walkabout today with Councillor Stout. Several residents saw us, and I got a couple of phone calls. Those residents living on the very west side of the box in red on the northwest corner along 42nd Street, they do back that other large green space. And there are many areas there where there's low spots, a lot of dead trees, a lot of standing water. Mosquitoes love that kind of area. Can anything be done? I know it's not part of the amendment, but you are the developer in that area to kind of clean up some of the dead wood and get some of that water flowing a little better to alleviate some of the standing water issue that they're observing. So you please just give consideration to that or find out how we can maybe move that along. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Through your worship, again, if I'm allowed to speak. Thank you very much, Councillor, for that. Yeah, I believe the area that you're talking about is kind of that north end where the trail is. Part of stage 9, this is stage 9 of Forest Heights, which again allows us to move ahead if this plan is approved. And as Ms. Raymond had mentioned through the subdivision plan engineering plan, it actually contains the trail connection in our plans from where that multi-use trail is right to the west, right to our property line. And so we've actually, we are aware that there's an issue, and we do minor adjustments on an annual basis to try to minimize that. However, once we go in and create that trail connection, we'll be regrading everything and correcting the issues that are there. So there will be work, there is plan for it. We do have designs, we do have things ready to go. Again, we just weren't able to do that until we're able to get approval on the stage 9. So
thank you.
Hopefully that addresses the question.
Thank you.
Follow up?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, so drawing discussion to a close. If I could just get the share screen drop so that people come back up on my screen, I'll call the question. Awesome. So all those in favor of the motion as amended, raise your hands and say aye.
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 5, 6. Councillor Barnhart?
I said aye.
Yeah, I was just sort of doing the lap around the screen to see it, making sure. All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Which brings us to, there are no registered presentations. Brings us to item 8A, 2020 Urban Forestry Maintenance Update. Administration.
Hello, it's Jennifer here. I'm just wanting council and mayor to review what we've looked at here on our maintenance for the 2020 season. What we tried to outline was basically the tree planting initiatives and what we're doing in this period. So I wanted to bring to light that we're taking care of planting the boulevard trees, and there's 180 to 190 this particular season that we will be planting in various areas of the city, as well as removing 6 trees that we've identified requiring to be removed, 3 of which are on 50th Street. The issue with these 3 large trees along 50th Street, we're bringing to light, they are, one is right at City Hall and the other 2 are adjacent to a property that is across the street from the youth center. The particular roots are going underneath and are creating an issue with the residents' driveway. So we've been in contact with them and we will be removing those. Those trees also have root rot at the bottom and are deemed a liability at the end of the lifespan. So we're removing those 3 poplar trees. One of the biggest things, the challenges we have had is the fact that we've been doing a lot of the urban forestry without detailed planning. And with the new approved Our Places in Play master plan, one of the comments that was provided was to create the urban forest strategy moving forward for Beaumont. And we're looking forward to getting that underway to actually help us plan the next 5 to 20 years. And one of the things that we've noted as we've been working through this last 2 years is collecting data on all of our existing trees. To date, we have noted 6,900 trees. That does not include our wooded kind of clumps or bushes is what we're calling them alongside LeBlanc Canal and things like that. And we're 90% complete. So we are creating a great database to move that into the forecasting and the expense requirements to maintain our urban forest moving forward. At this time, I'd ask if there's any questions that you would require.
Okay, so we have the motion before us is to accept this report as information. Do I have a member of council prepared to move the motion?
So moved, Your Worship.
Are there any questions of administration on the matter?
Yes, may I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Just regarding the 3 trees that have been removed and the arborist has been in communication with any residents affected, I'm assuming that those residents are comfortable with having the trees removed. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
So they're in support of that. Good, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you. I didn't want to hear that we were removing a tree that somebody wanted to keep.
No, no.
Okay, I have Councillor Hendriks, followed by Councillor Danlock, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk. Councillor Hendriks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question on the some of the older trees, some of the older poplars that are that have passed and are in need of removal. It's called the standard operating procedure. It appears to be that we take a tree that's potentially 30 or 40 feet in height, we cut it in half, and then we just take the top half away. Is there a second step to that? Is the bottom half being removed, or is it just left?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that because we've got different methodologies that we've introduced. If it's diseased and things like that, it depends where it is as well, location. Okay. So we use, if it's in a brushed area, we do use the forestry model, which will cut and leave the top to decompose and nutrient the soil where it is.
Okay. No, that's what I was looking for. I haven't seen that before, so that's interesting approach. So understood. So thank you.
Okay. I see Councillor Danlock's dropped off. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. For myself, just a couple of comments, and I think the key things for me is that Beaumont's got an arborist, and that's awesome. The tree replacement is ongoing, which is awesome, and I think the conversation started a couple of years ago for myself around understanding and having a inventory of all of the trees that we have and the importance of that, and the GIS system associated with all those things. And thanks to administration for bringing that all together. And I know that there were some background documents that were needed to be able to have support for doing that. So that's all I got for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Van Newkirk. Councillor Danlock, sorry about the technical glitch. You're up. You're still on mute, Councillor.
Sorry, my computer button sometimes doesn't work very well on my cursor. Just a quick question. Thank you for the program, and trees are important, of course, but is there an approximate idea on the approximate cost per tree that we do in our program to get an idea how far we can stretch our dollars to maximize the number of trees we can have in our area for future growth purposes? Just a ballpark idea, please.
I can get back to you on that as part of a per tree, because we have 6 species that we actually utilize now, part of our replanting. But I can provide you that dollar amount would also be shown once we're completed our inventory by the end of the year as a total urban forestry what we have. But I will put that on my list to get back to you on that particular unit cost.
That's a great answer, because my second question is going to be how many trees do we actually use, but you said 6. That's my second question. So I'm good. Thank you, Mayor Stewart.
Thank you very much. I see no further requests to speak. So once again, my personal thanks to administration for championing this project. It's been ongoing for a couple of years, and it's nice to see the trees that were approved in the budget going in. So at this point, I will call the question to accept as information. All those councillors in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Brings us to item 8B, community grant recommendations for approval. Mr. Shu.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I'm here tonight with the chair of the Community Grant Committee, Grace Frey. I see she's on the screen. I don't know if she can hear us or she's with us there. It looks like she's there. There we go. Welcome, Grace. This evening's topic is the Beaumont Community Grant Program, the May 1st, 2020 funding recommendations. Typically, the recommendations would have been before council probably 1 month ago, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, we extended the time for applications to May 1st. So it closed May 1st instead of April 1st. So that's the delay in seeing this before you. The committee met on May the 7th, and there was out of that matrix that they have as per the policy, they come up with 7 recommended grants to be awarded. And total funding of those 7 is $39,984. 2020 budget allows for a total of $70,000 between the 2 spring and fall intakes. I'll just give a little background just on the committee. The committee currently has 5 members. They work very hard for us, and we want to thank them for their efforts. They spend a lot of time on this. When the applications come in, they can be quite an extensive read, some of them, and it takes a while to score them as per the matrix and to work through that on their own time. So I would like to extend my thanks for that, and hopefully we can keep those committee members engaged for the foreseeable future. The purpose of the Funding Advisory Committee is to review rank applications using predetermined criteria and make recommendations to council in the awarding of the grant program funds. For the May 1st, 2020 intake, administration did receive 9 applications. 7 of them were recommended for a total of $39,984.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say Grace is on here. So if there's any questions specific for Grace, her role in this spring intake was the chair of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suter. I really appreciate that. I'll give the Grace, I'll give you an opportunity to speak if you wish to take it.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council and Paul. I really don't have anything to say. It's all captured in the request for decision that Paul put out. Yeah, everything kind of is laid out, and if you have any questions about discussion about the decisions we made or we didn't make, feel free to fire away and I'll try my best.
Appreciate that very much. And I thank you and your committee for all the hard work you do. It's a really important job within our community, reviewing all those applications and making grant recommendations to City Council. I don't necessarily have questions in specific to the 7 recommendations for award. But my question is that we're now on our second lap through this. How's it going? Do we need to make changes? Should we be doing a review? How are the proponents finding it?
I think that the process that has been devised in working with some of our suggestions makes the process go very smoothly. The first time around was a learning for everyone. Last fall, I think we felt a bit more comfortable, and this time even more comfortable. So I think everything is covered off.
Okay. Mr. Suter, do we have feedback from our CBOs that are applying for these grants? Are they liking the process, or how's it going?
Your Worship, I can't speak specifically for the groups. I know that administration has worked closely with them, and I know we do our utmost to try and help them if an application is in on time, but maybe missing some pieces. I know they'll work with them to try and tidy that up before it would come to the committee.
I appreciate that. And like I say, it's a large body of work that really the council really appreciates being done and being able to rank these for us. So I'll open it up to questions from members of council before we move this motion, and we'll go from there. I see Councillor Muncoff-Swain, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Barnard, followed by Councillor Stout. So Councillor Muncoff-Swain.
Thank you, Your Worship, and reiterate the compliments and appreciation for all the work from the committee there. I had a question around, and what I want to reiterate off the top here. I appreciate that this is your recommendation to council here, but I did have a question around the Beaumont soccer and equipment purchases, and I wonder if you could provide a bit more detail on that one. I guess the reason why I'm asking this question is, that to me the community grant program is looking at things that kind of hoping to impact the wider community, and I'm I guess a little concerned about the precedent around if one particular sporting group is asking for this, and does that set a precedent for everyone else who may catch wind of this, I guess, to ask and upsetting the apple cart here. So I don't want to prejudge the answer here, so I'll ask if you could just provide a bit of background about, it says equipment purchases here. Like, are we talking soccer balls, or are we talking goals that the larger community can use? So if you could provide some clarification around that, please.
Yes, I believe it was for equipment and jerseys. The idea was that they do donate their used equipment to youth groups, and I believe some families in need. I'm not sure what they do with the uniforms. Perhaps they remove the numbers and pass them on to them as well. When we looked at, I think one of the couple things is that it was nice to have a new organization to apply. We've seen several repeat organizations apply, so this was a new one. We looked at the membership, and I believe it was, I don't know if it was 12,000 members or 2,000. Sometimes I can't read my own writing. So the volume of people that were affected, and I think that number is not only it would be the families and the players as well. I don't think there's anything else. This also was, when we looked at all of these applications, and most of them made mention of the fact that with the present situation with COVID-19, This was a project that we thought could probably still go ahead, even though there obviously wasn't a season at that time, and who knows what will happen coming up. But it would be one that they could get all this equipment, the jerseys, and it would be in place for when they have another go at it.
Thank you for the response, and I don't want to go through and pick apart this. I would be interested in a discussion at a later date. You know, to the mayor's point initially, how's this going with the different community groups, and a discussion from council with you and the committee there. Like I said off the top, and I'm okay with this here. Your recommendation, I'll support it. But I do have a concern around the trend here of individual sporting groups coming forward with this and potentially inundating us and maybe setting a precedent here. So like I said, I support this and appreciate the work and the recommendation, but I'd be interested in a discussion at a later point, kind of to as a council with your committee to see how we can address some of those concerns. So thanks for your time.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And thanks, Grace, for attending tonight. This is one of my favorite programs because one of the things I campaigned on was seeing groups come in with a PowerPoint and a heartbeat and leave with money. So now we have a process that doesn't allow that. So thank you for being the gatekeeper for that. RV electrical completion. Would you be able to speak through that item with the Lions Club there, what they applied for and they got zero? And I know that project had some dollars already and the project isn't quite underway. Just wondering if you could speak to their application and the recommendation. Thank you.
Yes, that application was very similar, if not identical, to the one that they had applied to previously, and we believe it was the October one, and the work was not done on it yet. So we kind of left it with, if there was, we left it at that because it's in our estimation, there is a ranking process that we go through, and all four of us had ranked it in the category that it's in right now. And when we discussed it, that was primarily what the consensus was. Well, we already funded this and it hasn't taken place yet.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you for that. And Mr. Suter, I believe we had a brief update around some of the challenges they were facing with that getting project and that first round done, and administration was helping them through that. So maybe in the future, you know, it was important for us to get that project through. So if in the future this needs to be revisited, perhaps we could look for your guidance there.
Thank you, Mayor. And as others have said, thank you very much for your committee's work on this. Great job. It's a tough job. Always hard to say no. But I love that you said yes to a lot of the applications. And my question, two of my questions have been answered already. One was the Lions and the other was the soccer. But the third one is about the Victory Garden. Just wondering if you're using the same, I assume you are using the same criteria that's in the application guide. And I'm just wondering if there's anything particular there, because I know it's probably a relatively smaller group compared to soccer for sure. And I'm just wondering if there's any way, you know, that smaller groups can get some of their special items done, because it does add value to our tourism, to our economic development, et cetera. So a little bit on that. Thank you.
Okay, so again, based on the criteria that we followed, when we have the consensus of all four of us, again, the ranking was quite low. And once again, the consensus was that we have approved one, possibly two grants for them already. One was operating, I believe, and one was the basement and the grading. So, and we have not, we have not received a final report from them. So we don't know where that stands. So I'm not saying the application wasn't complete, but there are boxes to tick off, and their final report boxes were not ticked off.
Okay, thank you. And I am assuming that this information gets shared with the group so they can improve in the future when they apply for funding?
I believe, Paul, can you answer that?
Yes, Councillor Barnhart, we will. We do send a letter to the groups, yes or no, or whatever the decision is, and we can work with them. I know administration does field calls from them and inquiries about their applications.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stout, followed by Councillor Danluck.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I want to add my thanks for all the work and effort that's gone into this. And I'm glad we have a matrix to apply criteria and come to these conclusions, and somebody to actually make the judgments or apply the rules. That's great. I'm really glad that we've got to see that Drive Happiness is on there. I think they do sterling work, and I'm glad to see that we're supporting them. Sterling work in our community, I should say. One quick question. On attachment 1, the community grant program, there's a table matrix as well, community grant program funding approvals, May 1st, 2020 intake. There's a column there, 50% expense to max of 10K. I'm having difficulty working out what that is or why it's important. Could you just explain what that is to me, please?
Paul, is that something that you can explain?
Councillor Stout, I believe that, I'm just pulling it up here. 10,000 is the maximum, and I think that speaks to yeah, I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure.
If I remember correctly, when we put this grant program in place, the maximum grant that council will allow a community group to get was 10K, and we would entertain under this program up to 50% of their expenses. So they had to have some skin in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in our policy.
Yeah. It's straight policy driven.
Okay, so what's the 0.30? So for Drive Happiness, let's say, for example, their expenses are 32,500, is that? And then the 50% expense to maximum shows 0.31. What's that telling me?
I would assume that's the percentage between the shortfall versus expenses. 30% roughly.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does that answer your questions?
I'm still puzzled as to what that really means. But yeah, I'll go away and think about it some more.
If I may, Your Worship, through the council, I'll find out and I'll respond.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Suter.
Thank you, Mr. Suter.
Councillor Barnhart and Councillor Van Newkirk, your hands are still up. Did you have second questions or just didn't drop? Nope, we're good. All right, so is there a member of council willing to move awarding of the grants as proposed? Councillor Danluck.
So move, Your Worship. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion or further discussion on the motion?
No.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much for all your hard work. In particular one, because that's a thankless task, that one. Brings us to item 8D, or sorry, 8C, Beaumont Arts Council Terms of Reference and Establishment of the Beaumont Arts Council.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. Amanda Cuthbert here, Manager of Recreation and Culture for the City of Beaumont. This evening, I have the Beaumont Arts Council Terms of Reference for you to review and approve. At the March 12, 2019 regular council meeting, policy C38, the development and practice of artistic and cultural expression, was approved. Within the policy, the Arts Council was created in consultation with the arts and culture community in Beaumont and the region. The management and operational protocols for the Beaumont Arts Council are to be prepared by the Beaumont Society for the Arts. Appointed council members, Beaumont Society, the arts representatives, and members of the arts community met on a number of occasions to create a terms of reference for the Beaumont Arts Council. At the November 19th, 2019 Committee of the Whole, a draft terms of reference was presented. Council requested direction. It was presented and we requested council's direction. Recommendation changes included to add a conflict of interest clause. We added that at 9K. Statement on attendance and accountability, that was added at 9L. A clause to give special consideration for extenuating circumstances surrounding attendance issues, that was added at 7H. The recommended changes have been made and updated, and an updated draft was sent to the working group for final review. Administration recommends Council approve the Beaumont Arts Council terms of reference. This does align with the Beaumont Municipal Strategic Plan, Livability, the Policy C38, Development of Artistic and Cultural Expression, and the Recreation, Parks, and Facilities Master Plan. At this time, we are requesting Council's decision on this terms of reference.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this, and my thanks to Councillors Van Newkirk and Stout, who sat on this committee with me as we worked with Beaumont Society of the Arts to finalize this terms of reference. And I'm really happy to start to see it here, because that's one of the things that Arts Council needs to get up and going. So if we approve this terms of reference tonight, do we also need to appoint a councillor and an alternate this evening, or will that come back?
That's a good question. I don't know that answer. I may ask Ms. Mohammed or sorry, Shalane, I apologize.
Or can we just add it to the agenda and then it's ready to go and we don't have to deal with it later? Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to add another motion to do the appointments if you have councillors that will be appointed, or if this needs to be a discussion that needs to happen amongst council separately.
Well, we'll dispose of the item in terms of the terms of reference, and then I'll ask council if they have an update to that tonight. We'll see what they say. Okay, so is there a member of council willing to move approval of the terms of reference as presented? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion. Councillor Daniluk.
No discussion, just a follow-up question. The next amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any questions on the terms of reference? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say I'm really pleased to see this has addressed all of the issues, and it was a lot of hard work. I know how many times it went back and forth, and just now it's very clear the difference between council and the Society for the Arts. So really, really pleased to see that. You know me, I read things and I'm kind of like an editor in chief here. I found some typos. I'm not going to waste your time with it, but I can send that to Amanda if that's the best way to do it. You know, really, there was nothing substantial in that, and I'm just really pleased to support this.
Yeah, please forward those along, and yeah, thank you for your comments. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. All members of council in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Okay. Aye. And as previously started to discuss, this once these terms of reference are approved, we do need to appoint a member of council and an alternate to this to the Arts Council. Is just a quick nod of hands and show of hands. Is council prepared to make those appointments tonight, or do we need to bring this back for further discussion? Are there members of council willing to serve? Question. So yeah, comment on that.
Mayor Stewart, if I may interject a suggestion for you. This is a very important committee. I'm sure a member of council can appreciate that. Perhaps maybe you should canvass the members of council who may be interested in serving, who may want to leave another committee to go onto this one and do some hog trading between committee members. I know my committee level right now is quite heavy, although the arts does have appeal to me, but I'm not sure I wanted to serve on it. So maybe some food for thought for council to see who was interested in serving me. If we waited 2 weeks, that wouldn't be a big delay, I don't think, and allow some council to maybe give some thought to where they're serving now, and they want to do some switching around, possibly. Just a suggestion.
Okay, Councilor Mark-Osman, you have a comment?
Ditto.
Ditto. All right, so anybody else? Okay, as there's 2 out of 7 that aren't ready, then I would ask members of council, if you wish to serve on this committee, please send me an email and we'll bring it back as an agenda item at the next council meeting in June. Is that okay, Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Mayor Stewart.
All right. So moving to item 8D, notice of motion from Councillor Hendriks, Overland drainage review. So we will allow Ms. Winter to introduce it, and then the floor is yours, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. In accordance to the meeting procedures bylaw, once a notice of motion is made, it will be placed on the next regular meeting agenda. At the May 12th, 2020 council meeting, Councillor Hendriks made the following notice of motion: that the City of Beaumont review the current overland drainage design located on the northwest corner of Range Road 243 and Highway 625. The purpose of the review would be to mitigate the spring flooding that currently affects the landowner to the north of the location. Administration is looking for direction on how council wishes to proceed this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hendriks.
Your Worship, thank you. And I believe we've all had a look this spring at what happened in that portion of Beaumont. And certainly there's, I think, some simple fixes that could start bringing the spring flooding under control. But there's also some significant other issues that I could share by way of some drone footage that I've received that I can share with council, which is significant when you see the spread that we had with relative to the drainage issue in that entire region, that portion of Beaumont. So I think it's clearly it's unacceptable. This isn't something we want to see year over year. I think it needs to get fixed. We need to mitigate. And it's also been part of an overall strategy long-term for drainage in our area. In the past, I've sat on what was once considered a water commission, not the Southwood Jew Water Commission, a water commission to deal with overland drainage issues. It was done in concert with Leduc County. I think we need to restart those conversations. I think we need to fix this problem. And I'm bringing it before council to say, hey, I think it's we're due, it's up, let's get it fixed. So the process moving forward would be to ask our administration to provide us with the path forward on how to mitigate what we saw this spring, which was a significant flooding issue in that whole portion of Beaumont. So that would be my thoughts.
Thank you very much. So are you prepared to move your motion?
Yes. I'm prepared to move, and if you like, I could read it out.
Yeah, please. It'll save me.
So just to be clear, just so that I've got the words in to allow enough latitude. And again, it just states that the City of Beaumont, and this is my motion, review the current overland drainage design located at the northwest corner of Range Road 243 and 625. And the purpose of the review would be to mitigate the spring flooding that currently affects the landowner to the north of this location. And of course, mitigation is where I'm looking for latitude as to what, I think there's some simple fixes early into this process. And I think there's also some longer term solutions that we got to come up with. So that would be my motion. Thank you.
Okay, so open it up to questions from members of council. I do have one just so that I can scope this. How big of an area are you planning? Because I assume that you're down in the Premier RV area.
Yeah, I am, and I'm also into the Cheyenne Farm, the tree farm area. Also, when you see the drone footage, you'll be quite surprised.
Okay, so you're like the whole of a land is sort of what your scope is here.
Well, basically, what happens is when the water travels north, crosses 625, finds its way instead of turning west after it crosses the culvert at 625. For reasons unknown, it's been allowed to travel straight north. It's supposed to go west and follow a drainage ditch. There's an interesting configuration in that corner that was put there when Leduc County rebuilt 243. And I think there was some modifications and adjustments made that just didn't quite get it correct. And as a result, the water goes straight north. It should be turning west. And then when it goes west, the sheer volume of water that's now coming out because of potentially other issues on the other side of 625, and I'm talking to the south of 625 because there's been some infill done. Water that used to be contained in those lands are finding their way through the drainage ditch. Of course, not going west, going straight, finding their way to Premier RV and other locations, and then ultimately finding their way into the tree farm area. the drone footage that I'll send you will speak loudly as to what is happening when we have the spring runoff. And I think all of that has to be mitigated. I know we've done some work now. Certainly, you know, we've replaced a couple culverts, which helped, but that's not the whole issue. And as you head north, you know, we know that the LeBlanc Canal is currently, you know, a start to a drainage pattern, and then there's Blanc, Irving, black mud, white mud, finds us all the way to the North Saskatchewan, all of which is still clogged up in issues, and hence it backs up. So as we hard surface more and more product in the Beaumont area, as we put more roads down, and you know, landscaping disappears into concrete and sidewalks, and that you know, our ability to absorb these waters are rapidly disappearing. And somehow we're taking all the water from Beaumont and we're trying to find its way all the way to the North Saskatchewan River. So, and it's not running as efficiently as it should. So I think we need to address that soon. And the address started, and I think we need to just put some energy back into that to keep that moving. So.
Okay, Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do support this notice of motion. As you all know, when the 510 failed west of Beaumont here, we had the sinkhole. Administration did a fantastic job of replacing the two culverts with proper 4-foot wide culverts to drain the water from the Cheyenne area as well south of Beaumont going north. It's a great job, but the issue actually is coming from south of 625. As Councillor Hendriks mentioned, I wasn't aware until I talked to him and some other people in the area. Water is supposed to go across 65 and go west, but it's not. It's going straight north along Premier and up along 243 and into our borders and out north that way there. So there's something happening on the south side of 625, potentially channeling water to that intersection, and then it's being overwhelmed and going north, not west. So it is an issue. It's going to be recurring every year. The 510 repair is a big step in mitigating it, but it's not going to solve the source. So I endorse this idea to see if we can maybe fix this in the long term. Thank you very much.
Councillor Barnhart.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thanks for the motion. I support the idea. I'm just wondering if we have any way of knowing what it might cost us or why this hasn't already been looked at. Is that going to come back after this motion is made?
Well, that was sort of,
does this kind of make us responsible for something before we know that?
yeah, I'm sort of heading where you're at. And so that's one of the questions I had for admin is what's a likely cost and do we have capacity, or is this a better discussion to have at budget? Ms. Mohammed?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Barnhart. We don't have an associated cost with this yet. There was quite a bit of work done in 2019 looking at the lands in the more southerly parts, so not Cheyenne Tree Farm. There's been a lot of man-made interventions, not necessarily by the municipalities over the years. And quite a bit of work is going to have to go into this in terms of getting approvals from Alberta Environment to change the drainage patterns. A lot of engineering was done for the Elon area structure plan, which gives an idea of where the storm ponds need to be to fix that drainage. On the south side of 625, as we're all aware, there's a major wetland there. But we've checked all our infrastructure. It's all flowing the way that it's supposed to be. But what I would probably suggest is, as a first step for this, we provide a summary report to council, just letting you know that what work has been done. So outlining the work that has been done and the outcomes of that work. Any challenges with Alberta Environment, and of course, any drainage that's coming out of Beaumont also ties into the Blackmud Creek Stormwater Management Study, which is that agreement with 5 other municipalities once it leaves our boundaries. So as we all know, water is very complex. It doesn't just stay in our boundary, it flows between municipal boundaries. So yeah, as a first step, I think we just come back with a summary of what took place in 2019, what our findings were, and then potentially next steps. But ultimately, what we might find in the end is the type of engineering that needs to occur is the engineering that you would find with the Elon development. But that doesn't mean we can't explore it and outline it in the meantime to take a look.
Hey, Councillor Hendriks, is that a good first step?
Excellent. Yeah, and to the point of some of the, some of the mitigation or some of the, say, things that have been done by others. I think there's some simple fixes. Certainly, there's some big fixes, but there's some simple fixes that would assist in a big way. So I'd be very happy with getting this process started down this road. So that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very. Yeah, I would support the first step, and as we go forward, and then we can take the steps as we need. Does the motion on the floor allow that first step to happen, or do we need to modify the motion?
I'd be happy to give a friendly amendment.
Yeah, I'm just seeing if we need one. Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Your Worship. The way that I'm reading the motion, it has the words review, which is what we would be doing, is reviewing. So I don't see that there needs to be any amendment to this motion as it sits right now. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support the motion as well. I think we need to do this for all the reasons that have already been described. My one concern, which I think Ms. Mohammed sort of partly answered, was that we don't get caught in a scope creep. We've already started with an intersection, with a northwest intersection of 243 and 625, and then you sort of expanded it, Your Worship, to the entire land estate. So I guess that's as far as 510.
Yes.
I can see this getting bigger and bigger, and now to some extent we've got to follow the path where it leads us. But I think Ms. Mohammed addressed the first steps there, and I'd certainly support those first steps. And then come back to council and say, well, what scope is that? Where does that begin and where does that end, and what can we fix, and what do we have to live with?
Fair enough. Seeing no further request to speak or discussion on the motion, I'm prepared to call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously for step one. Brings us to item 9. There are no bylaws, so councillor inquiries and reports. We'll start with councillor inquiries. Is there questions of administration from members of council? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Hey, you bet. Thank you, through Your Worship, to administration. Was happy to have the discussion at the last committee of the whole around the BSRC, and we received a great presentation. One of the details on there that made me most happy was the two-day in advance bookings for the T4X residents to book up for swimming lessons and such. One of the shortcomings I proposed subsequent to that meeting to administration is that Leduc County also has committed funds to the construction and ongoing operations of the facility, and had proposed to administration that we look to a solution to include those residents, and just was looking for an update on that from administration. Thank you.
Ms. Mohammed.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Van Newkirk. At this point, since that meeting had occurred, we've been in discussions with Leduc County in order to work with them to identify the residents that are in the catchment area for Beaumont. And then those residents would be extended the same opportunity as the Beaumont residents would be.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's the spirit of what I was thinking there. So yeah, best of luck, and looking forward to what that solution might look like.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Seeing no further hands up for councillor inquiries, is there any member of council wishing to make a statement this evening? Okay, seeing none, moving on to item 11, CAO's update. Ms. Mohammed.
Thank you, Worship. So the first thing I would just like to talk about is really a congratulations to staff, and a great big thank you to all the residents who came out for the hazardous materials roundup. Ms. Winter, I don't know if you have the photos. I think we had a couple photos of the event. quite a lineup of cars that was there. They set it up, paying very much attention to the COVID rules, making sure there was the least amount of contact possible. You can see the lineup of vehicles there. We did have one learning experience, which was the vehicles were backing up onto 510. So next year we'll make sure we have a little bit better signage to prepare for that. I don't think we anticipated the line would be that long, but that's just really great. It shows that residents were really willing to come out and deal with their hazardous materials properly. So thank you for that. Public engagement has begun for the outdoor recreation facilities. And also in a couple of weeks, early June, we'll be seeing engagement start for the transportation master plan. So we're inviting those out in the community to participate. And also some good news, great news, building permits and development permits are coming in fast and furious. So we've had 56 total permits so far this month, 7 of which were houses. We don't have a full online e-permitting system yet, so we've had to create this system where they can email applications in. It's been a little labor intensive and challenging, but we're getting through it. And then as we start to transition kind of out of this COVID world that we find ourselves in, we'll start to get back to working on the e-permitting system again and get that up and going. Part of the reason why we haven't been able to do that is the amount of background work and information exchange that has to happen, which requires long sit-down meetings in person, lots of interaction and exchange. So we just can't get that accommodated right now. And that's pretty much it for updates tonight. Thank you.
Well, appreciate it. And once again, thank you for thank the administration and all the staff on behalf of council. The COVID-19 has not been easy. It's put a lot of stress on us, and our staff have done a great job. So please pass that along from us.
Thank you.
We have no items of correspondence. Is there a notice of motion from a member of council tonight? No. All right, seeing none, we're going to be moving into closed session. Can I get a motion to move into closed session for item 14A, the Regional Transit Service Commission update? Councillor Barnhart, all in favor, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Carries unanimously. All right, so for those members of the public that are still with us and members of council and administration, thank you very much for all your hard work this evening. It's a long meeting. We haven't had a meeting this long in a long time, but there being no business arising from the in-camera session that needs to be dealt with, we are adjourned, and we'll see you all next see you all Thursday for the briefing, if not before. Have a good night.